ABC Sport now has its very own newsletter, and we'd be pumped to have you on board.
Woohoo! The ABC of Sport will provide a wrap of all the best stuff that's happening in sport every week.
Simply go to abc.net.au/connect
and get ready for a sport hit in your inbox every Friday.
Get on board with the ABC of Sport newsletter
for content that makes you think
or allows you not to.
ABC Sport. AFL.
Oh, you wouldn't believe it! Future is now! The impossible angle! Sensational goal!
And that's what brings fans through the gate.
Roll up, it's time for the show. Forget everything that you know. You ain't seen nothing like this. It's impossible to resist.
Season 2022, the fans are back. The colour and soundtrack of our great game. Let's go.
You ain't seen nothing like this.
The 2022 AFL Premiership season.
Here is Buddy Franklin on 999 goals. He steps forward now. He's done it. A legend joins the immortals.
How much do you want it? How much do you need it? How much do you want this? We're gonna be kids.
This is awesome. I've got goosebumps on my arms. What a moment to be here.
The 2022 AFL Premiership season.
AFL.
Grandstand AFL.
On ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
Round 2 rolls into the Adelaide Oval as a battle-scarred Port Adelaide look to pick up the pieces from a physical Round 1 contest when they host a rejuvenated Hawthorn. The Power will need to get the job done tonight without All-Australian defender Aliyah, who suffered a syndesmosis injury against the Lions, whilst the Hawks welcome back premiership players Ben McAvoy and Luke Bruce from COVID protocols. It's great to have your company this evening on Grandstand AFL. Aaron Bryant's with you to call the action. And alongside me, as always, is Neil Cross. Welcome, Crossy.
Aaron, good to be here. Interesting night for the Power in so many different ways. Celebrating the life of Russell Ebert tonight. Of course, one of the legends of the football club, but as we know, they lost last week. They don't want to start zipping too. Plenty to play for Hawthorn as well after a big win in round 1.
Your experts this evening. Firstly, Carlton Premiership player Scott Camporelli. Welcome, Campo.
Thanks, guys. Good to be back. Yeah, I agree with you, Crossy. It's one of those ones that you would expect Port Adelaide to get the job done here tonight. But it'd be interesting to see live how Sam Mitchell is going to set up this game. You would think from the way he played, it would be, I guess, an attacking brand, highly skilled, and we saw a little bit of that last week, albeit against North Melbourne. But be really interested to see how they go. But, yep, this is a must-win for Port earlier in the season.
And alongside Scott Camporelli, a warm welcome back to the team for season 2022, Port Magpies Premiership player and coach Stephen Williams. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Aaron. Thanks, guys. It's great to be back. Fantastic night for the Russell Ebert tribute match. We see his wife Di and daughter Tammy out there about to toss the coin. So it's a big night for Port Adelaide, not only the fact that they have to win after a disappointing loss, 24 points up during the third quarter last week and lost by a couple of goals, lost a couple of important players, but there's an opportunity tonight for a couple of debutants to play well and get Port the win that they need early in the year.
No late changes for either side, so Josh Sinn and Sam Skinner will make their debuts for the Power this evening. The medical subs have been named as well, Tom Phillips for the Hawks and Jackson Mead for the Power. Before we dive into the game, Stephen, I did want to start off with Russell Ebert, a man that you played with and played under at one point as well throughout your career. Can you take us into what kind of a man Russell Ebert is, because he's so beloved in the state?
Yeah, he is indeed, not only by Port Adelaide people but just by everybody in the state. Just the fact that not only was he probably the best footballer to ever come out of our state, but just his charity work that he did for the Novita Foundation and so many other charities. Just a wonderful man, and really 72 years of age is way too young to lose somebody as fit and as competent as Russell was. So a really a sad thing that happened last November, and our heart certainly is with the Ebert family, and they'll be looking forward to seeing the boys respond tonight and play in that sort of spirit that Russell always played in.
You mentioned the Novita charity group, so the players tonight for the Power will be wearing a special Guernsey that has the number 7 on the left breast, so Xavier Dersman's retiring it for the night and wearing number 50. The Guernseys will be auctioned after the game and all proceeds will go towards that charity. So if you want to get involved, jump on Port Adelaide's website and click through the links and make sure you get behind the foundation that Russell cared about so much. Scott Camporelli, preview ahead of the game tonight. I think from Port Adelaide's perspective, as Ken Hinkley said in the post-game, they were probably happy with their performance against the Lions. It was just injuries were almost too much in the end.
Yeah, well, having watched the game, it was a real final-type game, really, for a round one. And obviously both of those teams are clearly going to be fighting for a top 4 position, you would think, throughout the end of the year. So, I was, the question over Port Adelaide's midfield, that was somewhat answered. You saw Houston go through there. Butters has obviously played more consistently through there. And I thought they actually had the better of the Brisbane midfield for majority of the night. But they just ran out of fumes in the end, Port. They lost Lear. He still played but did a marvellous job to hang in there, to be fair. They lost McKenzie. They lost Dersma. So they lost some key players late in the game, and when you're playing at high speed that they were in terms of pressure, the game gets you in the end. So I just think they would have been relatively happy, still not happy that they lost the game because they were clearly in front, but the signs were there. And that's the thing, I think, with Port Adelaide, Steve. I think the blueprint's still there. They've won enough games of footy. They've won the most games in the last 2 years, and people are ultra critical around the prelim finals. They're hard to win. You've been involved in them as well. So yeah, they've still got some improvement to do. The challenge now for them is how they're going to score. They're missing Dixon at the moment. That forward line doesn't function that well at the moment for mine. Okay, so Georgiades, Finlayson and Marshall. Marshall's got to do more for me, Steve.
Yeah, I agree. That's a big question, isn't it? The connection from the midfield into the forward line. That final kick, can they set themselves up with some nice, easy goals? They need more from... We know Connor Rozier's a fantastic young player, but he's almost got to a point where he needs to really take it to the next level now. We've seen Sam Walsh take it to the next level. Probably Zach Butters has taken it to the next level. So Connor's got all that talent. He's been a little bit unlucky with injuries, but he's a player that needs to consistently kick goals and really light up that Port forward line.
And for the Hawks, they looked pretty good in Sam Mitchell's debut as coach last week. They overturned a 21-point deficit against North Melbourne. Mitch Lewis arrived. He kicked 3 goals. I think the Hawks fans have been desperate to see him find his feet, and it seems like he's matured this season. James Sicily returned from injury, looked great. So did CJ Giaff as well. So there's no reason why they can't be competitive tonight and maybe even pull off the upset. Yeah, well, I guess they're in somewhat of a rebuild, I guess, it's, if you want to call it. New coach coming in. There's probably a change of the guard. We saw we see Luke Bruce and McAvoy come in. That's a little bit of experience for that group that didn't have last week. But, they've still got some quality players, going through there. Sicily's back, who I think is an important player for them in terms of intercept and rebound off that half-back. And then you throw in the Mitchell, Warple, and those sort of guys through the midfield. They're going to be important. So I probably don't think they've got the talent depth at this point in time is what Port Adelaide, and they're not as hardened as that. But under Sam Mitchell, and we've seen the turnaround, how quickly Vossi's done that with Carlton. Can he do the same thing with Hawthorn? Yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? We saw when Clarko was coach, even in his last couple of years when they didn't have a fantastic team, he was able to come up against a good side and take their strengths away. He was really good at coaching that way, and whether Sam Mitchell goes the same way, I can't imagine he will. I think he'll go out there and back his team to play his style of footy. So they come off a good first-up win against North Melbourne, who we all think will improve but probably won't go close to making the finals. So, it'll be a good test for them to see where they're at tonight. It's great to have your company this evening on ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital. If you'd like to get in touch with us across the evening, the text line 0437 774 774. We'll keep giving you updates as well from the Melbourne and Gold Coast game at Carrara. The scores to come through very shortly. It starts a little bit after this one. So we'll keep you up to date with that across the evening, and make sure you keep in touch with us as well. Let us know your thoughts about the contest that's about to play out. Round 2 action, Port Adelaide up against Hawthorn. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Scott Camporelli, Stephen Williams with you. The 5th member of our commentary team tonight, making her debut down on the boundary. It's a warm welcome to Liz Walsh.
Hello, Aaron. Thanks for having me. And it is actually quite a warm welcome. It's not cold down here this evening. Lovely, still beautiful weather at boundary level. Not much of breeze. It's going to be a beautiful night for footy. There's a big power crowd building tonight, and you can really feel there's a special connection between them all as they've just paid tribute to Russell Ebert. Lots of fans have their prison bars on and the number 7 on their backs. Port captain Tom Jonas has won the toss. Port will keep to the southern end, the Riverbank end of Adelaide Oval. Looking to the benches, and for Port, Xavier Dersma looked to have broken his collarbone last week, but miraculously he's back. He's going to start on the bench alongside Connor Rosie, Willem Drew and Lockie Jones. And as expected, Jackson Mead is the medical sub. For the Hawks, Luke Bruce, James Warple, Connor McDonald and Finn McGuinness will start on the bench, while Tom Phillips is their medical sub.
Great to hear the roar once again of Port Adelaide fans at the Adelaide Oval. Round 2 action on Grandstand AFL. The Power hosts the Hawks. Can Port Adelaide get their first win of the season, or can Hawthorn go 2-0 for the first time since 2018? To kick things off, here's Neil Cross.
They do love their anthems, the Port Adelaide fans. Just a stat for you going into this, Hawthorn in the past 30 years have only been 2-0 after 2 rounds 5 times. It's not a great record as they go into this second round after a big win. First up, ball in the air. First possession was almost for Mitchell. He's been knocked over by Powell Pepper. And Port Adelaide goes forward. Georgiades, a big jump. Jarth on the ground. Got a hand pass out just into space. It's fallen for Sin. First game, got a hand pass away and a tackle. And the ball rebounds off the legs, I think, of Georgiades in the end. It's out of bounds in the right forward pocket for the Power, as Liz said, attacking that Riverbank stand end of the ground.
I tell you what, Tom Mitchell's life just flashed in front of him with Sam Powell-Pepper coming off that, and it was a fair bump.
Toss back into play. Reeves in front position, beaten by Finlayson, who knocked it down to Amon, shrugged a tackle, gave it off to Wines, and he's mauled. Somehow got it out to Motlop, shanked it off the left to the top of the goal square. Brought to ground by Georgiades, and Ward is there to swoop on it for the Hawks. Hands it back to Mitchell. Over the top, sold Hardwick into trouble, but Finlayson wrapped him up over the shoulder. And the free kick will be paid to the Hawks.
Just a throw in. I reckon the umpire said that he lifted his arm up and made the tackle go high. So
great decision.
Yeah, it was a good decision.
Thought you'd be with the midfielders club looking for that being a free kick, Campo. But anyway,
we don't need a club, mate. We just find it ourselves.
Ball off hands. Hawks clear it away from the defensive area. Lycett intercepts for Port Adelaide. Darcy Byrne-Jones receives a hand pass back inside forward 50. Wasn't great. Picked off by Reeves. And Reeves immediately tries to open up the play going across to Morrison on the other side of the ground. And away they go off half back with Frost.
Heads up the eastern side, puts it in front of Wingard, bounce favoured McKenzie, stuck a palm out but couldn't bring it in. Picked up well by Newcomb, gave it to O'Meara, lowered the eyes. Hits up his intended target more. Tight angle on the right, 45 from home. He doesn't look confident, but there's a 50. Looks like his opponent's moved on the mark.
Skinner.
Poor Sam Skinner, and Dave Boo has given away a 50, and Moore will march into the goal square and kick the first of the evening for the Hawks. It took 2 minutes, but Sam Mitchell's squad is on the board. 1 straight 6. Port Adelaide yet to score on Grandstand AFL.
Very efficient from the Hawks. Port Adelaide had the repeat entries, but the Hawks were able to get it out, get it clear, and quickly down the other end of the ground. And not sure exactly what the 50 was for, but that certainly aided. And yeah, good start for the Hawks.
Might have been for breathing on the mark, I think. Yeah, it's an interesting decision sometimes, and it's a huge penalty you're paying if you just move around too much on the mark. So back in the middle, I've got a problem down on the boundary with Jath at the moment. Is that right? Just trying to pick up where he is on the ground. He's come off the ground. Might go down to Liz in just a moment just to see what's going on there. As we go with the bounce now. And Port Adelaide straight out of the middle to Butters from Lycett. Inside forward 50. Ball comes to ground. Powell Pepper comes through. Ball on the ground again. Morrison just hacked it out of there towards half-back for the Hawks, and the ball over the boundary line gives us a chance to go down to the boundary line to Liz Walsh.
Yes, you're right there, Neil. Jarth came off. He had blood streaming from just above his left eyebrow. He's being attended to by the doctor at the moment, and he'll probably be back out there soon.
Couple wounded early for the Hawks, but they're all out there. Houston got it from Lycett, wrapped up quickly, turned it over to Reeves, swung in the tackle, handballed it in front of Nash, couldn't keep it in play. Another boundary throwing to come on the eastern side. So Hawthorn lead 1 straight 6. Early stages of the opening quarter. Dylan Moore, who had 1 last week, already has equalled that. Houston off the ruck contest, gathered, was quickly tackled once again. 36 touches last week. But they're on him early. The Hawks threw a chain of handballs get it back towards Scrimshaw. Popped it in front of O'Meara. Chips it down the line and hits Newcomb. Just behind centre wing, wastes little time, hands it off. Mitchell gives it on to Nash, puts it into the 50 for the Hawks. Gunston's there, got a hand on it. McKenzie was right behind him, knocked it down to Jonas, and then Burton. Port Adelaide can clear defensive 50.
Clears it fairly effectively on his non-preferred foot, and then big tackle by Mitchell on Houston, and is rewarded with in the back. He thought it was his free kick, and so did Houston.
So did I.
So Houston takes a free kick, drops it short to the back flank to Boat. Running outside him was Bonner. Received the hand pass, one bounce down the eastern wing. Inside half forward, he goes to the lead up from Georgiades, missed it. Scrimshaw got a hand in there, and then there was a high tackle. So it'll be Sicily to back up and take the free kick at right half back for the Hawks.
Great return from an ACL for Sicily last round. 27 touches. Gives it to Newcomb off the bounce. He was under pressure immediately and turns it over. Straight to Travis Boak, centre wing on the eastern side. Looking for some options. Doesn't have anyone inside, so he'll bang it long towards the 50 for the power. Marshall can get some rise at this. He's caught behind and outmarked in the contest. Brilliant fly from the Hawks there. And Scrimshaw, the former Sun, got in front position. Crunched beneath the pack, but held onto the footy.
Drops it wide. Picked up there by Sicily. Down towards centre wing. Wasn't a great kick. They get away with it. Goes to Morrison on the turn down towards half forward. McAvoy opposed to Skinner. Skinner battled hard. Ball knocked into a bit of space. Nash picks it up. Interesting hand pass. Turned it over straight away. Butters did a little bit of a dummy and a pirouette and found some space. Gave it to Boat. Took the mark immediately on the Wines. The Brownlow medalist goes inside half forward long. Hardwick had the better of the contest with Georgiades and knocks it over the boundary line. 20 around from the goal face in the left forward pocket for the Power. This is Grandstand AFL across ABC Radio, ABC Sport Digital.
The Hawks lead by 6. We've travelled 6 minutes in the opening quarter. Toss back into play. Inside Port Adelaide's attacking 50. Reeves won it down against Marshall quite comfortably. Tapped it to Nash. Back to Scrimshaw. He's under pressure from Amon, but spins brilliantly. Clears it errantly off the bounce. Lewis was there. Tried to gather. Ended up soccering off the deck straight to Burn-Jones. Hands it to Butters at centre half forward. Port Adelaide into the 50. Pops it in front of Georgiades. Coming across. Granger Barras makes a contest and tackles him over the line and into the fence. A couple of Port players come in. It wasn't too aggressive, but not a great look for Denver Granger Barras.
It's 2 or 3 times Port have had the loose ball actually with a player free kicking inside 50, but that connection that we talked about still not happening for them.
Ball comes back into play. Top of the 50. Scrimshaw was in there. Ball comes out of his hands. Loose to Pal Pepper. One step, bang, long, and out on the full. Out on the full in the right forward pocket. 7 minutes down in the game, and the crowd is up because of that was the number that Russell Ebert preferred to wear. He also wore number 1 in the prison bars in the SANFL as well, but number 7 was his number, and that's why the crowd's up and about as Hawthorn gets the ball down to centre wing on this broadcast side.
Wingard put his head over the footy but couldn't bring it in. Lycett gathers. Errant handball could have favoured Wingard. Coming to assist. Bruce put his head over the footy and was tackled for his efforts. Brought down centre wing on the western side. Liz Walsh on the boundary.
I just wanted to let you guys know that it's so beautiful down here. Everyone's standing up for this round of applause for the full 7 minute.
Great ovation for a great man in Russell Ebert. From the ruck contest, there's a free for holding. It'll go Lycett's way. Chips it short over the top to Dersma, wearing the number 50 tonight. Retired temporarily in honour of Russell. Dersma pops it short. Hits Butters just behind right half forward. Out on the western side. Calls for some options. Sends it into the 50. Leading out Marshall, uses the body, gets rid of his opponent so Finlayson can come through and clunk the mark. 30 from home, 45-degree angle to the right.
He's the man, isn't he? The Port Adelaide have invested a fair bit in with letting Laddams go to Sydney. Finlayson's come in as that third tall forward, and you would imagine when Dixon's back, one of those 3 are going to miss out. So it's important that they can show what they can do while they've got the opportunity.
It wasn't a great debut for the former Giant last week, just the one behind. Let's see if he can make amends at home at the Adelaide Oval. Boots cross the paint of 50, kicks from 45 on the left. It's starting right and hitting the right-hand goalpost for a minor score. Port Adelaide 1 behind. Hawthorn 1 straight 6. Travelled 9 minutes in the opening quarter on Grandstand AFL. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Stephen Williams and Scott Camporelli with you.
Scrimshaw bringing the ball in for Hawthorn. Takes his measure and then goes long near the centre square. Ball comes down. Off hands, lots of players around the ball. Scrambles on, Drew's in there. Oh, Mitchell, of course, ferreted it out for Hawthorn. Gave it to Bruce, brilliant vision across the square. He went straight to Morrison, hand pass forward then to Newcomb. Takes one bounce towards forward 50. Square was open, but he went shorter, looking for Wingard. Massive push, surely no. Played as a mark for Wingard. And forget the fact he's a former Port player. The crowd is very much booing him for that.
I actually think they clipped each other's legs, which caused, I think it was Mackenzie to fly forward. Just having a look on the replay. Once he got kicked in, he did try to engage him.
20 metres out, straight in front. Wingard has kicked the goal. Crowd not happy. Hawks are. 2 goals straight on the board for the Hawks after 10.5 minutes. They lead by 11 points. Power just with the 1 minor score. So 2 goals straight for the Hawks. Power just 1 behind after 10.5 on Grandstand AFL.
Yeah, having a look on the replay, they both tried to engage and it just looked like he clipped his ankles, which caused Mackenzie to look like he got pushed and went forward. But interesting hairdo there, Steve. You had rolled with the bleach top back when you played?
Yes, it is certainly stands out. But yeah, if Chad Wingard gets going, it's a lot of he can cause a lot of damage for Port Adelaide. He's a terrific player. Probably hasn't played his best footy since moving across to the Hawks. But Port Adelaide people will know he's played some blinders out on this oval when he was younger.
And the other thing too, Steve, 7 inside 50s for Port for 1 point. Hawthorn 3 for 2 goals.
The Hawks by 11. McAvoy wins the tap down, looking for O'Meara. Bounce past him to Mitchell. Quick clearance straight to the chest of Darcy Byrne-Jones, who intercepts at half-back for Port Adelaide. Pops it short to Dersma, and then over the top to Amon in front of the benches. Again, a bit stagnant now. Once they get past the halfway line, the Power. Short to Houston. And he led back across to Bonner. Defensive edge of the centre square, Riley Bonner. Doesn't know where to go, so he'll kick wide again to Darcy Byrne-Jones.
Byrne-Jones backs up towards the boundary line at right half back. Straight down that line he goes. And it's Dersma with the lead up. Another pop, little pass short to Amon running outside him. Was Houston. Forward hand pass on the boundary, finds Wines. Wines goes inside forward 50 into the pocket. Georgiades, and what a great punch that was from the Hawthorn defender. Frost came across the front of Georgiades just when he thought he had a chest mark and he'd done enough. And it's out over the boundary line.
They're looking pretty comfortable, the Hawk key defenders, covering their Port Adelaide offenders. So it's pretty impressive from the Hawks so far.
Toss back in, McAvoy straight down to Morrison. Quick clearance around the body up to left half back. Jones caught behind, spoiled it to ground. Possibly a high tackle as Bruce slid in. Umpire won't pay it. Or has he?
The other umpire off the ball paid.
Took a while there, but Hawthorn will receive the free kick at half back. Jaff screaming for it on the outside, won't receive it. He'll be popped over the top. Hits Scrimshaw in front of the benches. Wastes little time centering his kick to Mitchell on the logo. Held his ground. Wines was right on his tail. Tom Mitchell, disposal number 6 coming up in the opening quarter despite the heavy clash with Power Pepper at the opening bounce. Heads long towards the 50 for the Hawks. Sits up for McAvoy, rising up the back. Houston spoiled it down to Amon. Handball out wide to Dersma. He's got Newcomb on his tail. Ducked into the tackle. May have been caught high. Umpire has paid it the way of Port Adelaide. Gee, fell into that one, Xavier Dersma. Has felt like a few decisions have gone the Power's way. Owen and Bruce Rock on the text line says, in relation to Dylan Moore's opening goal, that stupid moving on the mark rule strikes again.
There's a 50-metre, I think, as well. And this one, Scrimshaw got in front as the ball came down the line, took a mark, and he was met late, said the umpire, that's worth 50. So that stupid late gets you 50 rule as well. Strikes for the Power. So now the man in the mark stands 45 out. It's Amon, and Scrimshaw has got a very good, very long left boot. Let's see how he goes from about a 45-degree angle. Chance for Hawthorn's third of the night. They've kicked straight thus far. Arcs out and hooks it to the right. Ball bounces around off a couple of hands, and then eventually McKenzie knocks it through for the minor score. Rush behind Hawthorn 2-1-13. And just the 1 point on the board for the Power after 14 and a half minutes.
McKenzie out of the defensive goal square rather, pops it short to the right back pocket. Here's Sam Skinner on debut. A former Lion, 3 knee reconstructions. Made his mark in the Sandful and is now back on an AFL list. Clears defensive 50. Finlayson in front position, couldn't clunk it. Granger Barras puts his head over the ball. He's wrapped up by Drew. And a ball up will come. Just a reminder, in 5 minutes' time, the Suns host the Demons at Carrara. If you'd like to hear the call of that, jump on the AFL app. There is an ABC stream available. Otherwise, we'll give you some scores throughout the night. Mitchell now off the ruck contest. Hands it to Morrison. Kicks around the body, up and under, down towards the 50. Bruce just kept it in play with the mark. No. He's been pushed over.
No, he dropped it.
No, he dropped it.
Yeah.
Thought he slid in and had that there. Maybe a bump ball, Crossy. But boundary throw in to come left half forward for the Hawks.
Good start for the Hawks. Last time they were 2-0 was 2018. Now, ball socket off the ground down to centre wing for Port at the back. Picked up by Sicily, only just. Jath picked it up. He was tackled as well. Drew got it forward, in the air, down towards half forward. Butters running with the flight. He's controlled it, then gave up a hand pass straight towards the boundary line under pressure from Frost. The umpire thinks that's okay because he obviously thought there was a Port player there and there wasn't. So the ball's over the line, right half forward for the Power on a big night for Port Adelaide, and they just haven't quite started the way they wanted.
Trailing by 12, McAvoy taps it down looking for O'Meara, has a fumble, then gathers. Drew's on him, got a handball away, but so his teammate into trouble, McGuinness. He's wrapped up by a couple on the 50 line, and a ball will come just inside the boundary. Quick reset here. McAvoy up against Finlayson. Again, McAvoy wins it down looking for Warple, who fisted it over the boundary line. Fans wanted deliberate, won't be paid. It'll be tossed back into play. 16 minutes gone in the opening quarter. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Scott Camporelli, Stephen Williams with you. Toss back into play. Finlayson knocked it down to Butters. Gathers cleanly. Hands it off to Burn-Jones. Spiral punt up towards the 50. Didn't have a lot of carry. And Ward drops it clean in the air for the Hawks. Means Rosie can come through. Tried to get the hands to Dersma. He fumbled. McAvoy now picks it up for the Hawks. Turnover again. Bonner over the top to Drew. He's open at 35. Snaps too far right. Minor score again for the Power. 2 behinds for them. 17 minutes gone. Hawthorn 2-1-13 on Grandstand AFL.
Hawks bring it in, go long inside the centre square. Picked up by Mitchell, got the hand pass to O'Meara. Forward of the play was Bruce. Interesting hand pass. Umpire said it was a throw. No, it's coming back. And it will be for maybe a late hit on Mitchell. So just behind the centre circles, he takes his kick. Flares out wide to the left half forward. Bruce with the mark. Cuts inside, having taken the mark. Sends it 25 from goal. Ball to ground. Over the back. Dersma's there. Moore does well. Pushes it off. Gave it to Lewis. Then back to Newcomb. And Newcomb pushed as he kicked the ball. It only went about 5 metres. And the umpire said, no, that's not a mark. So we'll have a throw in there. So scoreboard pocket. And the scoreboard reads that it's an 11-point margin in favour of the Hawks.
Toss back in. Reeves up against Finlayson. Reeves got front position, paddled it down easily. Was looking for Warple, who was quickly tackled as he gathered. Umpire circles and calls ball up. Your officials this evening: Chris Donlan, Lee Howson, Paul Rebashini as well. On the reset, knocked out towards the boundary line. Moore's there to scoop it up, but shoved over by Darcy Burn-Jones. Boundary throw in to come on the painted 50 out on the eastern side.
It's a little bit flat the game at the moment, Steve. There's not a lot in it. I mean, Port, they're really struggling to connect inside forward 50. Hawthorn look much better when they're going ahead of the ball. Port look a little flat to me at the moment.
Yeah, you wonder whether, looking at Brisbane's first quarter today against the Bombers, they were well and truly outclassed as well. So whether that big game last week took a bit out of them.
Jath almost had an intercept mark as Port Adelaide took it out of defence. Now they've got control of the game. Amon gave it to Bonner, pops up a kick wide. On centre wing, taken by Boak. Immediate hand pass off to Wines. Joining them was Rosie. Into half forward and beyond goes the kick. Hawthorn have the numbers. Nash, the Irishman over the top, comes and knocks it over the boundary line. 40 around from the goal face. At left half forward for the Power.
They look really well set up, don't they, behind the ball, the Hawks. When it comes in, it's always an extra back there, and Port just have to find a better plan coming forward.
Jath and Sicily were their best in the coaches' votes last week. You can see why tonight. Willem Drew from the ruck contest got a handball away with Newcombe on his tail. Picked up by Sin, pushed it out towards the left forward pocket. Drew's running onto it, but Jath beats him. May have been caught high by Drew as well. The tackle brings him to ground. No call. It could be holding the ball here. Ball up in the left forward pocket. Power fans getting restless. They want a major. Here's the reset. Reeves down straight to Boat. Gives it to Drew. Then Rosie. Port Adelaide a 1-2. Dersma back to Rosie. Bonner now skies it into the left forward pocket. Wines is sitting underneath it. Flying though and soaring through. It was nearly taken by Georgiades. He's been given it.
Wow,
he soared over the pack and didn't really hold onto the footy for very long. It almost went straight through his arms. Great rise, and I think for the moment it's just been given to him.
Yeah, that's not a mark, is it? It looked spectacular and it was a great attempt, but it hit his chest, and as he's coming down, the ball's on its way out, so I reckon that was play on.
They needed a bit of luck, the Power, and they've got it. Tight angle, 15 out. Pitch Georgiades. One last week. See if he can double his season total. Starts on the boundary line, 45 out. Slow approach. Kicks from 30 and can't deliver. Minor score on the right-hand side. 3 behinds for the Power, trailing by 10 points. Hawthorn 2-1-13 to Port Adelaide's 3 behinds. Time on in the first quarter on Grandstand AFL.
Hardwick waits to bring the ball in. Goes out there on that eastern side, runs his measure, kicks long, almost to centre wing. Not a bad kick, and from behind, brilliant mark. Taken there by McAvoy. So McAvoy looks wide with his kick. Gee, it wasn't a great kick, but it found Moore's chest in the end. He went back with a flight in front of Dersma. Inside 50. It was a good pass. And the mark taken there by McDonald. So he'll go back. He's 40 from goals. And it's a fairly acute angle, I would have thought. He's backing up outside 50 and within maybe 5 or 6 metres of the boundary line. So Connor McDonald, just the one game last week under his belt, comes in, belts the ball, and it's not bad. It's pretty good. It's fantastic. Well, he knew what he was capable of, and the Hawks get their 3rd. That was a good finish. 3-1-19 Hawthorn, and the Power just the 3 behinds. 22.5 into the opening quarter. Your experts Stephen Williams and Scott Camporelli.
Just able to slingshot Campo from that back half, quickly getting into their forward line. There's not a lot of people back there. They got Port defenders running back towards the Hawthorn goal, so they're really out of position, and the Hawks have only been inside forward 57 times for 4 shots.
Yeah, your point's correct, Steve. That they just look like, I don't know, they're moving the ball. They're better by foot. They're spreading a little bit harder than Port. They're getting a lot more, I guess, uncontested marks, for want of a better word, not in the traditional sense, but they're getting uncontested marks, so it's making the kickers easier to hit.
Over at Carrara, the Suns strike first against the Demons with a point. 3 minutes in through Levi Casbolt. Here it is Hawthorn by 16. Late stages of the opening term. Nice little flick out handball from Boat to Wines. Then Powell Pepper gives it back to the Brownlow medalist. Up to right half forward. Too low for Butters. Goes to ground though and gets a handball out back to Wines. Over the top to Boat. They've surged into the 50 of the Power. Boat heads towards home. It's curling across the goal face, and Sicily stands his ground. He had Georgiades all over him. Gets the intercept mark for the Hawks.
I would have loved him just to handball that to young Sin.
Sicily goes out to the eastern side. They organise their numbers and take it off the pack. Hawthorn. It's fallen for Reeves, picked up by Morrison, or rather in the end it came to Bonner. Bonner went back to Powell Pepper. He scrubs a left foot kick forward. Umpire calls play on as Hardwick tried to claim the mark. Knocked it out. There's Morrison. Gave it to Moore. Moore went backwards with his hand pass. Off his non-preferred right foot, it's high from Ward. And going across near the boundary line on the eastern side, taking the mark is Wines for Port Adelaide.
Wants to send it back where it came from, up to left half forward. He's looking for Marshall, who's outnumbered. Made a contest of it, though. Butters came through, couldn't gather. Applies a tackle, though. It's a great one. And causes the ball up out at left half forward. Fans wanted holding the ball there. I don't think there was much prior. Hawthorn by 16. Here's the reset. Reeves in front position. Tried to take it away from Lycett. Couldn't get it cleanly. Ward stripped of it by the Port Ruckman. Bangs it into the 50, but bounces in front of Georgiades. And over the line. 35 out from the power goal in the left forward pocket. Hawthorn leading 3-1-19 to Port Adelaide's 3 behind, approaching the 25-minute mark of the opening quarter.
Ball hurled back into play. Reeves knocks it down. Pal Pepper came through. Then Warple. Oh, he had a fresh there. That could have been in danger. Umpire, as a look, says there's an in the back there. It'll go to Warple. So he takes it defensively. Goes out to that eastern wing again. Lewis on the lead. Takes a chest mark. So Power fans getting a little bit restless at the moment. Ball's found its way to Ward. And then Ward goes down to half forward. And it's Warple who receives from O'Meara, and he puts it inside 50, and across comes McKenzie. And that was a good mark. And in similar circumstances, he had that knee problem against Brisbane last week. Not a great kick inside. Finds only a Hawthorn intercept almost for Wingard. Loose hand pass goes forward. Power are able to get it back and in control through Jonas eventually.
Clearing kick out towards the western side. Granger Barras spoilt it to ground. Got a hand in as well to keep it away from Rosie, who slung his opponent Sicily down off the ball. Free kick goes the way of Hawthorn. Plenty of time here for the Hawks as Sicily sends it long into the 50 to the top of the goal square. Big rise from Lewis, nearly clunked it. Jonas, the quick clearance. A bouncing ball that tumbles towards Rosie's, wrapped up quickly by Hardwick. Ball up to come. Attacking edge of the centre square for the Hawks, but gee, Mitch Lewis is looking dangerous.
Yeah, he'd be a bit upset with himself there. He had that probably in the bag, to be fair.
Off the ruck contest, Boat gets it down to half forward. Marshall leads his opponent. Hand pass though was loose. It's back inside the centre circle. Hawthorn have some numbers, and Morrison over the top makes a good tackle, forces the ball up. Last man up was Georgiades in the end. So
Marshall's just got to hit that handball, Steve. I mean, that's a basic fundamental of the game. They'd probably go down and score out of that.
O'Meara slipped a hand pass out. Pal Pepper intercepted it, was immediately tackled. Ball still in dispute. Warple comes away. Forward hand pass, and he's out at the front. Moore from 50 goes all the way long to the right for the minus score.
I tell you what, sorry, Crossy. I tell you what Hawthorn are doing is they're spreading like really hard, Steve. They're getting that overlap. They're getting an extra number ahead of the ball, which Port Adelaide are really struggling, particularly through the midfield.
3-2-20 plays 3 behinds, a 17-point lead to the Hawks as Port Adelaide clear defensive 50. Looking for Houston, rose up over the top, knocked it down to Wines. He socked it off the deck through the centre square. Granger Barras with a great bump alongside Georgiades, both fine from it. Warple meanwhile heads up to right half forward for the Hawks. Jones cuts it off. Great slap to advantage. Coming to assist. Dersma went to ground. Still got a handball away. Bonner now gathers off the deck. Gave it to Boat. He was under immediate pressure and coughs it up to Scrimshaw. Gathered. He's caught by Jones. Handball got away and Bonner will have scored it over the boundary line for a boundary throw in on the eastern side. Over at Carrara, the Suns have struck first with the first major. They lead the Demons 1-1-7. The 8-minute mark. Jeremy Sharp, the goal kicker for the Gold Coast.
Meanwhile, here at the Adelaide Oval, ball back into play from the boundary umpire, and the ruck contest sends it straight down in front. And the umpire comes in, says Travis Boak wasn't going anywhere, and nor was his opponent Warple, so we'll get a throw up. O'Meara, centre of the pack, had hands on it. Pal Pepper got it out. Boak put it into a bit of territory for Wines to soccer off the ground. Great pick up by Sin, and then he went back with a hand pass to Houston, who went wide with a kick to Georgiades. Disquiet, I should say, among the crowd. They're not happy with Port's performance in the opening quarter.
Here's Gunston. He's the forward that just came from the forward line back as an extra. There's only just under a minute to go. He sprinted from his forward 50 down there, and they kicked it straight to him.
Uncontested intercept mark for the Hawks. Back down the eastern side they go. Collision in air has got 2 power players down on the deck. Ball still in play.
He's not well.
Skinner hands it off. Bonner chips it short to the area where both players are down, and play will be stopped as a result. Big concerns down here. Both players have their heads in their hands. Georgiades is one of them, and McKenzie is the other.
Is that a bad start to the year, Trent McKenzie?
Yeah,
He's been
banked up.
His mouth guard's come out in the process as well, and Morrison's just stood on it, so he's not too pleased about that. Both players on their feet. Georgiades looks okay. Morrison's got a trainer with him. McKenzie, rather, has got a trainer with him. Yeah. But both seem happy enough to let play resume.
His hands went to his head straight away. He's not got a trainer. He's got a doctor with him, McKenzie, but he's let him go now. So
Reeves taps it down from the ruck contest. Wines head over the footy, couldn't gather. Wingard socket off the deck, and the free kick will be paid for Sockering in danger. Dersman wastes little time, gives it out to Bonner. Last chance for the power, and the siren will beat them. Was heading towards Marshall in the left forward pocket, just didn't reach there in time. Slow start for the home side, desperate for their first win, and Hawthorn have shook them early. 3-2-20 the Hawks, Port Adelaide 3 behinds quarter time at the Adelaide Oval. The goal scorers for the Hawks, all individual. Dylan Moore had the first, Chad Wingard has one, and as does second gamer Connor McDonald. Over at Carrara, Gold Coast lead Melbourne 1-2-8. The Premiers yet to score, 10 minutes gone in the opening quarter. If you'd like to hear that game, jump on the AFL app. There is an ABC stream available for you. Otherwise, if you'd like to get in touch with us, the text line 0437 774 774. It's great to have your company tonight at the Adelaide Oval, the conclusion of your Saturday triple header of footy. It's Port Adelaide up against Hawthorn, with the Hawks leading by 17 points at quarter time on Grandstand AFL.
Ready for some new adventures? Back Roads is back. From the macho mining town of Tom Price in WA to outback Queensland and Tasmania's Cradle Mountain, join me, Heather Hewitt, and some of my fellow guest explorers for a journey to some of this country's most remote towns, full of surprising and memorable characters.
All new Back Roads. New adventures Monday nights on ABC TV and streaming on ABC iView.
The 2022 AFL Premiership season. Grandstand AFL.
On ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
Picked up well by Newcomb, gave it to O'Meara, lowered the eyes, hits up his intended target more. Tight angle on the right, 45 from home. He doesn't look confident, but there's a 50. Looks like his opponent's moved on the mark. Moore will march into the goal square and kick the first of the evening for the Hawks.
So Newcomb takes one bounce towards forward 50. Square was open, but he went shorter, looking for Wingard. Massive push, surely no. Played as a mark for Wingard. 20 metres out, straight in front. Wingard has kicked the goal. McAvoy looks wide with his kick. Gee, it wasn't a great kick, but it found Moore's chest in the end. He went back with a flight in front of Dersman. Inside 50, it was a good pass. And the mark taken there by McDonald. Connor McDonald comes in, belts the ball. And it's not bad. It's pretty good. It's fantastic.
This is the 2022 AFL Premiership season.
On ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
Port Adelaide need to find some of Russell Evert's trademark aggression and class, because at the moment it's Hawthorn looking like they're headed towards an upset at the Adelaide Oval. They lead by 17 points at the first break. 3-2-20 plays 3 behinds on Grandstand AFL. Great to have your company this evening. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Stephen Williams, Scott Camporelli and Liz Walsh with you over at Carrara Stadium. Gold Coast lead Melbourne 2-3-15. The Demons yet to score. The goal scorers for the Suns, Levi Casbolt and Jeremy Sharp so far. So both underdogs getting off to a hot start to conclude your Saturday's fixture of football. Earlier today, Collingwood defeating Adelaide by 42 points and Brisbane defeating Essendon by 22 points. On the text line 0437 774 774, Bill says, poor to average umpiring, fix it before handing out 50-metre penalties. We'll touch on that very shortly. Scott Camporelli, Stephen Williams, what did you make of the opening quarter?
Well, what I made of it is that Port Adelaide are in front on most of the, I guess, the stats, for want of a better word, but they can be deceiving. what Hawthorn have been able to do, they've had almost 300 metres more gain in terms of field position. So Port Adelaide are actually winning clearance. So from a field position point of view, they're getting it forward and they're getting inside forward 50. But all three goals, one out of Hawthorn's 3-2, have been transitions, full transitions from out of Port Adelaide's front half, and we've gone all the way through and scored from there. That's a concern, Steve, going into this game. I think Hawthorn are covering the ground better. Their skills are much more precise, by foot in particular, and they look like they're covering the ground a little bit better than what Port are. And when they've kicked inside forward 50, they've had one-on-one opportunities. You saw Wingard, you saw Gunston and these sort of guys getting one-on-one. You go down the other end at Port Adelaide, they're kicking into virtually 36 players all the time. So, yeah, we can be critical around Finlayson and Marshall and Georgiades, but they're competing against pretty much Hawthorn's whole defensive structure every time it goes in there.
Yeah, Port just need to be that. We talked about it before the game, that inside 50 kick, the last kick that the midfielder has to go inside forward 50, and there just hasn't been any split between the Port Adelaide attackers and the Hawthorn defenders. So even they've had time on that kick, but just can't really deliver it to a space where the Port forward can get some split on his player and get out and mark the ball and give themselves a pretty easy opportunity to score a goal. Port really haven't looked like kicking the goal. Finlayson probably had that one opportunity from that one mark inside forward 50, but as you mentioned, the transition from Hawthorn from the back half through the midfield has been really slick, hitting their targets, and certainly looked a lot more potent when the ball's gone inside the forward 50.
In response to Bill's text, the free kicks are 5-4 in the favour of Hawthorn, but the 50-metre penalties have been quite damaging for the home side. Liz Walsh, what's happening down on the boundary?
Yeah, just thought I'd let you know that a few of those Hawks boys were being worked on by trainers in that quarter-time break. Tom Mitchell, Jaeger O'Meara, they were both on the ground and having their calves really worked over. So we'll keep an eye out for them.
Some of the main stats heading towards the second quarter. For the Power, Travis Boak topped all possession getters with 14 in the opening term. Riley Bonner had 10 as well. For Hawthorn, Jaeger O'Meara and Tom Mitchell had 8 apiece, as did Harry Morrison off half-back. In terms of the overall stats, disposals went the way of Port Adelaide, 104-83. Disposal efficiency just their way, 70% to 69%. Clearances Port Adelaide's way, 19-15. But Hawthorn leading at the moment by 17 points, 3-2-20 to 3 behinds on Grandstand AFL. Earlier today, Collingwood defeating Adelaide by 42 points, which a texter has been quick to let us know about, saying the Crows were miserable.
Well,
wasn't a great game.
The right way we're going. The first win for somebody next week when we have the showdown.
Yeah, someone has to.
Brisbane also defeated Essendon by 22 points. Bounce in the middle, second quarter underway. Hawthorn by 17, and they're going to get the first clearance. Mitchell pushed as he's kicked it. Went towards Warple, who's wrapped up quickly by Boak. Still inside the centre square, will get another ball up.
Umpire quick to put it in the air. Oh, the ruckman got effective tap out. Went to Butters, slick hand pass very quickly to Wines. Tumbled the ball about 10 metres, maybe. Another hand pass came out there, that time from Dersmer, and Amon sends it forward for Port Adelaide. Hardwick dropped a chest mark. Gets back on Rosie, takes him down. No, said the umpire, wasn't holding the man. Now Hardwick has ball in hand. Wasn't a great hand pass. Picked up by Amon. Starts it on the left post, and it stays that way and fades a little. So minus score for Port Adelaide. They're fourth behind of the evening, and they trail by 16 points inside the first minute of term 2.
Does he do that a fair bit, Steve? I'm just trying to think. Rosie pays for those free kicks a fair bit.
He does tend to, yeah. And the umpires, even when maybe they are there, the umpires tend to work that out after a while, and even when you should get one, you don't.
Scrimshaw heads to the eastern side for the Hawks, and Lewis gets a little flight just over the back of Lycett. Not a lot of height, but enough to claim the contested mark. He was first in the league for it in the opening round. Heads out to the western side in front of Sicily, who marks uncontested on the logo. True centre wing. Plays on around the man on the mark and heads into the 50. Gunston's leading out. Jones got in front of him, but overran the footy. Gunston can gather at the back. Snap from 35 as he snuck it through. Just inside the goalpost. It's a major for the Hawks. They're running away with it at the Adelaide Oval. 4-2-26. Put Adelaide 4 behinds. 2 minutes gone in the second quarter on Grandstand AFL.
Well, they're just braver with their ball movement, Hawthorn. Once again, that's another goal out of Port Adelaide's front half. He ran off the mark. Can't remember who it was. Was it Sicily that ran off the mark?
Yeah, Sicily was good.
Ran off the mark and opened up the ground. They're asking Port Adelaide, do they actually want to defend? And they're making the ground really big, and they're asking them, do you want to try and defend a big ground? They're trying to make him skinny, but like that was Dersma there, Xavier Dersma, just allowed his guy just to run to the wing uncontested. And Jack Gunston's probably one of the better players over the last 10 years, really, to be fair, one-on-one. And what a great finish.
Lockie Jones was really slow too, wasn't he, recovering after he ran under that ball.
Ball back in the middle. Neither ruckman got an effective hit out. Scrubbed off the ground. No, there was holding. It'll come back. It'll be a free kick for Butters for Port Adelaide. Crowd obviously happy about that. Just quickly, only 10 goals Port Adelaide last week from 55 forward 50 entries. They've had 14 tonight already without kicking a goal. So a short pass from Butters finds Lysett just ahead of the centre circles. Big man sends it forward. 25 from goal. Big pack. Ball comes to ground. Ward overruns it for Hawthorn. Picked up by Dersma. Flicked it to Drew. Out wide. He went to Amon. Has already had a sider from here. And this time was a little closer than last time, but still not a goal. He went narrow with it. Hawthorn quick to bring the ball in.
Nothing easy though, is there? There's not an easy shot of goal. Everything's under a lot of pressure.
21-point lead to the Hawks, and Hardwick has marked it at left half back just inside the boundary line. Over at Carrara, the Suns lead Melbourne by 15 points, 2-3-15. The reigning premiers yet to score. Hardwick called to play on, heads down the eastern side, all alone at the front of the pack. Skinner is a great intercept marker, and now starting to show it on debut. Centres his kick to Amon, marks uncontested, looks for the switch dangerously out to the western side, and thankfully for the Port Adelaide supporters, Rosie has been dealt with illegally. Gets the free, hands it off to the runner Jonas. His skipper forward to Wines. Centre half forward, he pops it towards Finlayson, outnumbered, went over the back. Lysett soccers off the deck. Amazing soccer skills from the ruckman. Sign him up for the Socceroos, he'll probably score a goal at the moment. Scott Lysett. Rucks can't kick Scott Camporelli, but they can off the deck.
Well,
Adelaide's first of the evening.
Well, if that's what they're going to rely on to kick a winning score, their ruckman, Scott Lysett, soccering, hacking one out of there, they're in big trouble. But even that wasn't fluid. But I guess they got it in deep. They got it to a deeper area where it puts Hawthorn defenders under pressure, and he just sort of drifted down with in general play. But hard work for Port Adelaide to try and kick a score here tonight.
So there's 3 goals to none opening quarter from Hawthorn. That's one apiece in this second term now. Port Adelaide aim on 2 minor scores. Lysett with a goal, and Jack Gunston with that great snap from the forward pocket for Hawthorn. In the middle, great tap down, finds the run of Mitchell for Hawthorn. He sends it long inside 50. Burton couldn't smother it. Jones came over the top and knocked it to Houston, who gave it by hand to Jones, who scrambled the kick outside his defensive area. It's wrapped up by the Hawks. Motlop was the man who got the ball, but immediately was tackled to ground by McGuinness. So we get a ball up out there on the eastern side of the centre square.
15-point lead to the Hawks. Lysett takes it out of the ruck and clears it up towards right half forward. Finlayson crunches the pack, but didn't do enough to get it to his Port Adelaide teammates. Mitchell kicks around the body errantly for the Hawks. Had more time than he thought and turns it over straight back to Scott Lysett. The power up, looking for some options. Jones runs by him for the handball. Eventually has to give it to him because he's called to play on. Jones doesn't have anywhere to go either. Finally chips it short, hits Houston through centre wing on the eastern side. Over at Carrara, Melbourne have finally hit the scoreboard. Max Gorm with a major. They trail Gold Coast by 9. Houston now long towards the 50. A pack awaits. Marshall got the rise but couldn't clunk it. Spills to O'Meara. Chips it safely inbound towards Nash, who marks inside defensive 50 for the Hawks.
Ball knocked away from him, but all okay. And the umpire then directs Nash back behind the mark, which now he's done. And he backs up into that defensive pocket in front of the scoreboard. Goes out on the eastern side. McAvoy couldn't get near the ball, and Gunston was deemed to have pushed. No, it was over the shoulder somewhere there, and Jones will take the free kick. Lockie Jones will take the free kick for Port Adelaide at right half forward, inside 50 he goes. Sicily leads Powell Pepper to the ball. Powell Pepper takes up the role of defender and just knocks it over the boundary line. Liz Walsh.
Yeah, just another thing we need to keep an eye on. Jackson Mead, the Port's medical sub, has just started stretching up, limbering up a little bit on the sidelines. So we'll find out what the plans are there.
Lysett wins the ruck contest, straight down to Butters. Clearance into the 50 for Port Adelaide. It's a high ball and sits right into the arms of Sam Frost, who had Marshall on him and somehow took a mark uncontested. Hawthorn exit defensive 50. Great kick over the top to McAvoy. Centres now to O'Meara. He's got space to run into through the square. Into the 50 for the Hawks. Low and flat to Gunston. Sliding down takes it. 45 out. Tight angle. He'll chip it short to the left forward pocket. And Moore leading out will take it on the chest. Still a tight angle. 30 metres out. Dylan Moore looks for his second.
Just like chalk and cheese, isn't it? The way the ball's moving up and down the ground, and particularly inside 50. So much easier for the Hawks forwards.
All work rate, Steve.
Plays on, snaps around the body and knew it was home well before it passed the goal umpire. Dylan Moore has 2. Hawthorn up and about at the Adelaide Oval. 5 for them this evening. 5-2-32 plays 1-5-11. A 21-point lead once again for the Hawks.
Well, they're just getting outworked. They're plain and simple, Steve. Like across the ground, I watched Burton there on Moore there. He completely put 4 or 5 metres on him before, and then Burton just was pretty much jogging after him. So that's why he got an easy uncontested mark. But he came from one side of the ground to the other, and Burton just refused to put his head down and go. Not playing well, Port Adelaide, at the moment.
Hawthorn by 21 points. We've gone through 8.5 minutes of the second term. Liz Walsh.
I just checked in with Port Adelaide hierarchy. Jackson Mead is just staying warm.
Well, it's a pretty warm night. You think he wouldn't have too many problems. Meanwhile, out of the ruck contest, it'll be, well, the umpire indecision there. He was going to give Lysett a free kick. Then Port Adelaide tried to play on. He was about to signal advantage, and in the end, he held it up. So Lysett, after all that, takes the kick, sends it along. Big pack, ball comes off hands, accidentally finds Georgiades. Hand pass back to Houston from 45. Houston with a finish. Absolute rocket from Houston. And the power up now, and a little bit of run, a little bit of purpose about them. 2-5-17 Port Adelaide, trailing Hawthorn 5-2-32, 9.5 down in the second term on Grandstand AFL.
Not a lot of science in that one, Campo. Just a big long kick out of the middle by the ruckman, but they got the ball in the right man's hands. Houston certainly a good finisher, and to say Port Adelaide needed that one, certainly an understatement.
It's a quality finish off a couple of steps, isn't it? We saw it last week against Brisbane. See it again tonight. But as you say, Steve, real hard work for Port Adelaide when they're scoring.
Melbourne have clawed back again at Carrara, trailed by 2 points to the Gold Coast Suns thanks to Ben Brown's major. 2-3-15 plays 2-1-13. Time one in the first there. Here it is, Hawthorn by 15 points. Clean bounce in the middle. Reeves tapped it down looking for O'Meara. Bounce went completely backwards, and Wines has a fumble as a result. Gathers for the power eventually. Gives it to Drew. Out to Burn-Jones. Uses Bonner, who wheels around at right half back and centres his kick to Dersma, who marks alone in the square. Completes the switch out towards the western side. All alone is Motlock. Over the top. Hits his ruckman Lysett. Wanted to go, but immediately Granger Barras came forward to cut him off. Steps back on the mark and then bombs it into the 50. Georgiades got rid of Scrimshaw but couldn't clunk it. Butters puts his head over the footy and is wrapped up. Ball comes out. Marshall now the tackler. He somehow gets it out to Rosie. Drew back to Butters along the deck. It was a shank of a kick. There's a whistle coming back to Port Adelaide. Couldn't hear it in the crowd.
Yeah, on Rosie got thrown after the initial ball cleared the area.
So Connor Rosie to receive the free kick.
Oh, yeah. Frost.
It's tossed away by Sam Frost.
It's one of those when the tackler tackles a guy and because he's got his head tucked into the back of him, he doesn't know that he's released the ball and he continues with the tackle, and it's unfortunate, but it's an obvious free kick.
It's a man on the mark, 30 out, straight in front. Connor Rosie comes in, kicks from 35. Back-to-back majors for the power. They're starting to believe once again. Down to single digits, a 9-point game at the Oval. Port Adelaide 3-5-23, Hawthorn 5-2-32. We've travelled 11 minutes on Grandstand AFL.
Yeah, I guess, and that's what Port can do. History says they do score in big chunks. They'll kick 4 or 5 real quickly. So Hawthorn, as good as they've been, they don't want to give Port Adelaide any oxygen at the moment, because that will just start their running game, which is what they're renowned for, and they can score quickly.
Yeah, those clearances, we look 21-9, so that's an issue that if that trend continues, there's going to be a lot of ball going inside Port's forward 50, 21 inside forward 50s to 13, so they're starting to get a real ascendancy in that area.
Back in the middle, Reeves had the better of the tap down. Now, will that be in the back? No, said the umpire. It looked like Newcomb got into Wine's back in the tackle. Umpire instead says, give it to me. Ball up. Will that be in the back? Warple went to ground. Umpire lets it all go. Says no. Give it to me again. Zach Butters that time ensuring that Warple wasn't getting a clean disposal. Ruckman go at it again.
Third time's the charm. Ward will get the clearance for the Hawks up towards the 50. Rising at the back. McAvoy couldn't take it. Did enough to knock it down. Was looking for Morrison. Dersma cut it off and was wrapped up. Fans wanted higher in the back. They're not going to get it. Morrison puts his head over the footy, trying to wrench it out for the Hawks. Jones does that instead. Stands his ground in the tackle and hands it dangerously into the Hawks 50. Picked up by Moore, who can hand it out to Ward in his second game from 40. Sprays it. Minor score to the right-hand side. Hawthorn up by 10 points at the Adelaide Oval. And we have travelled 13 minutes in the second term.
Poor skill error there from Lockie Jones. Just won the ball really well, but poor handball behind his teammate almost cost him a goal.
So Port short to Burton in the back pocket. And he peels off a ball to Jones. Jones about 40 from goal. Takes his time, then short, outside defensive 50. Georgiades with the lead. On the diagonal was the kick. So Georgiades stands at left half back. Down the line straight away to Houston. That was the bare 15 metres. Houston looks inboard, thinks about it. He's being told go back and around, but instead he's called a play on, goes down the line and long. And he had Finlayson there who dropped basically what was an uncontested mark. Now he slips out a hand pass to Sin on his natural left foot, curls it not well enough. It's out of bounds on the full. Hardwick will take the free kick just outside defensive 50 for the Hawks.
What Hawthorn have done, they've actually been really good, Steve, in terms of being able to shut Port's switch game down and force them down one way, which Port don't want to do.
Hardwick heads down the western wing. McAvoy got a hand to it. Spilt to Sin. Nice handball to Drew. The power now through their skipper Jonas. Wrapped up in the tackle and swung. Got a handball away. Intended for Skinner, but the bounce didn't work. Warple bursts through into the 50. It's a flat kick for Gunston, who dives but can't complete the mark. Bonner now in a one-on-one. He's got more on his tail left forward pocket. Does enough to escort it over the line for a boundary throw-in. Quarter time over at Carrara, and Melbourne have snuck another late to hit the front through Luke Jackson. They lead the Gold Coast 3-1-19 to 2-3-15.
Well, they'd be disappointed. Jack Gunston would be disappointed with that. That's an easy connect inside forward 50.
Yeah, he lost his man, didn't he? He was out the back as the ball comes back into play off the ruck contest taken by Eamon. He just scrubs the kick, got it outside 50. It'll be picked up by Ward. Eventually received the hand pass from McDonald, then across the top of the 50. Wasn't a great kick. As a result, Port Adelaide able to turn it over. Through the hands they go. Finally, they've released it wide, and they've found Burton on his non-preferred. Holds up the ball, goes for Amon. He's on his preferred left leg. Down the line, he goes with a kick, and there's a free kick off the play. Will it go to Hardwick? I think it will. Rosie and Hardwick having quite a battle, and Hardwick was taken away from the contest. Short pass finds Ward on centre wing for Hawthorn.
Centres his kick errantly. Drew back with the flight, takes it against Newcomb. Still in their defensive half. He'll go short to Butters. Marks close to the logo. Hands it off to Bonner. Through the square they'll go. Amon nearly caught in the tackle, trying to duck and weave. Got a handball away, but wasn't great. Wines came to assist. Hawthorn are everywhere at the moment, and they will gather all they want. McDonald clean bowled by the ball. Port Adelaide can mop it up. Jones's kick smothered. Ricochets towards the 50, but the Hawks are sitting back. And Hardwick can send it up towards right half forward. McAvoy's in a one-on-one. Disposed of Skinner. Can gather off the bounce, but Amon gets him. Spun in the tackle. Handball is clear. Skinner can mop it up for the power. And handball inside to Wines.
Wines picks off his kick inside the centre square. Butters down low, took it on the half volley. 2 bounces, runs diagonally through the square and then hooks the kick back nicely for Sim. Top of the 50, the young man has the ball.
He'd kick that from there, wouldn't he?
Yeah, well, they say he's a really good left foot kick. So
saw him in the community game, Steve. He launched one from about there and went just about post high.
Well, he had 3 or 4 thoughts and now he said, right, calm it down.
Knock it over, young man.
I'm going to have a crack. So here we go. Josh Thin, the old Xaverian, picked up with pick 12 in last year's draft. In his debut game, settles himself. He'll have to kick this every bit of 55 metres, perhaps more. In he comes. Arcs out to his left. Hooks it high. Hooks it long enough. But well astray out on the full. Such a build-up. And no result for the Power.
We couldn't have been any more positive with him.
10-point game at the Adelaide Oval. Hawthorn leading 5-3-33 to 3-5-23. Approaching time on. Hawthorn exit defensive 50. Jones flew. Ball went past him though. Spills to ground. Amon picks it up. Hands it to Boak. Then back to Wines. The Brownlow medalist into the 50. Marshall again gets a rise. Can't clunk it. Spills to Georgiades. Handball out to centre. Wrapped up and slung to ground. Motlop comes to assist. No free kick in the process. Amon now kicks around the body. Up and down in the left forward pocket, but it's marked just inside the line and carried 15 as well. Travis Boak has it. Tight angle in the left forward pocket.
Not a hard shot, this one. If he just takes his time, right footer, just curl the ball around. We see the players do this fairly comfortably a lot of times.
Had a goal last week against the Lions. He's getting better with age, Travis Boak. He's kicked across the goal face here. Hyped him up too much there, and Dersman knocks it over the boundary line in front of the scoreboard. No score. Hawthorn still lead by 10 points midway through the second quarter.
All about the contact there, Ken.
Maybe with you, Steve. You kicked the ball beautifully. You would have dropped punt from there, not run around.
Is that old dogs and new tricks? Anyway, ball back into play. Off the back taken by Morrison for Hawthorn. Tries to clear the area high. A couple of Hawthorn players run into each other. Moore was one of them. Warple the other. Now he follows up on the ground. Wingard, I think it was, knocked it into a bit of space. Ward tried to knock it as well, got thumped, but that was good enough. They're out and racing. McGuinness has got the ball inside 50. Running back with a flight into the left forward pocket. Gunston just runs out of space. We'll get a throw in, 15 around from the goal face for Hawthorn, and down to Liz Walsh on the boundary.
Well, Jack Gunston's straight back into play, but after he leapt at that and didn't make that mark before, he ran from the ground and was in a serious discussion with trainers, pointing at his lower ribs and taking in some deep breaths. But he seems to be fine and back on the ground.
Toss back in. Port Adelaide will take it away from defensive 50, but Jones's kick went to no one. Just smashed it out to the eastern side into space, and it's carried so long that it's out on the full.
It's come off his shin.
That's when you really have to attack, isn't it? When you win the ball back there and you're away, you just have to hurt the opposition. But it was a poor effort.
Mitchell plays on for the Hawks, heads back into 50. McAvoy flew, couldn't get a hand. Lewis was at the back, tackled as he kicked it. It'll dribble towards the boundary line rather, and it'll be tossed back into play as Gunston and Jonas do battle.
Certain section of the Power crowd wanted that deliberate. I don't know. Well, not sufficient attempt to keep the ball in, but I don't think that's going to happen in the forward line if you're Hawthorn, or any side for that matter. So the ball in the ruck contest, and Wingard throws his head back, and the umpire says you were taken high as you went down to get the ball. Travis Boak, the offender, and Wingard will get a look at the goals from maybe 35 metres out.
Yeah, that's
it was there for sure.
Travis be hating that with me. An ex-teammate. Just
what the crowd thinks of it. He won the 2013 Best and Fairest in Port Adelaide colours, but all that's forgotten somehow, I think. Yeah. Two-time All-Australian in Port Adelaide colours.
Doesn't take long.
In he comes. Wingard shoots for goal, and he's happy with it, and so he should be. He didn't overly celebrate. He looked around as if to say, well, what do you expect?
Yeah, well.
So, a goal for Hawthorn, and they go on a 6-3-39. Wingard with his second. Hawthorn 6-3-39. Port Adelaide 3-5-23. We're into time on in the second term. Hawks have got control of this match, and they're in a little bit of trouble, Port Adelaide.
Well, I mean, he's got his knockers, and he obviously got shifted out of the team that he's playing tonight. But what he does do, Steve, he does hit the scoreboard. He's dangerous up there. So he only needs half a dozen possessions and he can actually turn the game. We've seen that for a long period of time.
Yeah, for 2 or 3 years he was as good a player as Port Adelaide had, so there was no question about that. They fell out of love and moved on, but he certainly left his mark at Port Adelaide.
Hawks by 16. Good bounce in the middle. Lysett rises first and taps it down. Went straight to Mitchell though for the Hawks. Errant handball forward, trying to gain space. Butters can cut it off. He's met heavily in the tackle though. McDonald gives it off to Warple. Goes long from 60 towards the top of the goal square. Lewis in a one-on-one. McKenzie spoiled it down, but went straight to Nash. Gathers off the bounce, runs into goal. Brilliant finish from Connor Nash. He read it perfectly off the contest. Hawthorn with back-to-back majors. Back out to a game-high 22-point lead for the Hawks. 7-2-42, plays 3-5-23. On Grandstand AFL, Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Scott Camporelli and Stephen Williams with you.
Well, that one hurt. That one hurt because they got probably a cheap one, Hawthorn, there with the free kick before, albeit. But centre bounce clearance, best opportunity to get one-on-one. I'm not sure Xavier Dersma might want to look at that one off the wing on the other side of the ground there. He just didn't pay him any respect when that came in long and strong. He was front and centre and got rewarded. Just looking on the replay now, just had no touch and feel on him at all.
Connor Nash from County Meath in Ireland. That was very much like what you do in Gaelic football, running in and making sure you got the extra points for putting the ball in the net. Out of the middle, they break again. Ward with a forward hand pass. Chance for more from 40 metres, and he pulls it to the left for the Miners score. Another big chance for Hawthorn there. 23 the margin. As we close in on half-time, we're nearly up to 24-minute mark.
Fourth shot of goal for Dylan Moore, so he's causing some problems up there.
Liz Walsh on the boundary.
Oh, it's more Hawthorn news. It's all going on down here. Chad Wingard's come from the ground, is again talking to trainers and having a few little laughs with the Port supporters on the sidelines here too.
Meanwhile, the Power have exited defensive 50. Georgiades got a nice pack mark. Heads out to the eastern side to Butters. Round the body he goes quick to centre wing. Hits Boak. Paid the mark. Hands it back to Butters coming through. Stabs it down the line to Georgiades. Still too far to score. Stood off his ground, called to play on, and the kick is awful as a result. Just panicked. Newcombe intercepts. Kicks down the line for the Hawks. Just trying to get space. He puts it in front. Chasing onto it is Bruce. Can't beat Jones, who gathers on the bounce and takes it over the boundary line. He'll be tossed back into play left half forward for the Hawks, kicking to the Riverbank stand end. They lead by 23.
Ken Hinkley's going to have to do some things in half-time, you'd think, as the ball comes back into play. Lysett takes it down the front. Hand pass from Boak finds Amon. He ducked his head. Umpire called play on. Sin had it. Gave it to Amon along the boundary line. Boak, and then inside to Willem Drew. Just goes down towards centre wing with a tumbling kick. It's on the ground now. Scrimshaw accidentally got the ball out of there in the direction of Moore for Hawthorn. Nash ferreted it out. He gave it to McGuinness. Jath forward with his hand pass. Warple dummies inside, goes to his left foot. Burne-Jones left standing, went for Lewis. Ball through the hands. Port Adelaide will pick up the crumbs and they'll bring it out defensively through Bonner.
Central kick hits Houston, still inside defensive 50. Dan Houston, as we touched on, 36 disposals last week. And for Port Adelaide tonight, he only has 9 in the opening half. Short he goes, hits Jones. Handball off to Bonner, still inside defensive 50. They finally exit it. It's Sin, the debutant, at right half back. Over the top he goes to Amon, stood his ground and thankfully clunked it as Nash was fast approaching.
That's 15 for the quarter for Amon.
Spins around, kick towards the logo. Jaff cut it off but couldn't clean it up. As a result, Burne-Jones comes through, gives it off to Boak, stabbed it to Wines, couldn't take it in the contest but got it back towards Burne-Jones. Over the top he goes, neat little chip out to the scoreboard pocket. And Georgiades rises over the top of his teammates. Takes a mark, 45 from home, tight angle to the right.
Yeah, Carl Amon's really racking them up, isn't he? 15, 9 kicks this quarter, 6 handballs, so he's having a real influence.
We know Mitch Georgiades has the power to get the distance here. It's a lot to ask, though, from the angle. Starts his run up all the way back at right half forward. Looking for his first of the evening. Crosses the paint of 50 and kicks from 45. Leans back on it. And it's too far right again for the Power. Their 6th minus score of the evening. They've certainly had their chances, trailing by 22 points. 7-4-46 the Hawks. Port Adelaide 3-6-24. 27 gone in the second term.
Just saw a shot of Ken Hinkley in the Port Adelaide box. Very thankful, I think, for having the mask on.
I was just going to say the same thing, Rossi.
He was didn't look impressed at what he's seeing. Port Adelaide trailed by 17 at quarter time. And right now it's a 22-point margin in favour of the Hawks. Ball back into play. Near centre wing. Came off McAvoy to Bruce. McAvoy went back, got the ball as Bruce fell out of the tackle. Now forward they go. Warple just knocks it on. Lewis involved as well. It's bouncing towards half forward. Picked up by Bonner for Port Adelaide. Wide for Amon. Another position for him in the quarter. Inboard with a kick wasn't great. McGuinness picks it up for Hawthorn. Tackles straight away. Ball came out. Ball on the ground. Players hurling over it. One of them is McGuinness. He's got it now. Trying to release it. Umpire calling play on. Reeves was in there, the ruckman. And then finally it came out through Butters. McAvoy was out the back though for Hawthorn. Picked it up, gave it to Sicily. Off half back, wobbly old kick. In fact, it probably came off his shin and went to Burn Jones. And Port Adelaide can mop it up now from half back.
Messy footy at the moment. McKenzie's short to Amon, who takes the mark, and dangerously down the line of Pepper. Took the mark, handed off to Bonner, who kept going into the left forward pocket. He's put it out towards Georgiades, but didn't have the carry. Sicily cuts it off back with the flight. Another intercept mark. Heads across the goal face. Granger Barras with the mark, and now the switch is completed out towards McGuinness. He'll stab it to the 50. Dylan Moore. Dylan, the defensive half, takes the mark, plays on, runs up the eastern side. He's looking for Lewis, has Marshall on him. Tapped it down towards Bruce, who bangs it towards the 50. A tumbler that bounces over the top of McKenzie. Works beautifully for Gunston. Throws it on the left from the tight angle. Jack Gunston. That's why he's a 3-time premiership player. He's got 2 this evening. Outstanding work from the tight angle. Hawthorn out to a game-high 28-point lead on the stroke of half-time. 8-3-48, plays 3-6-24 on Grandstand AFL.
Once again, just the ability to transfer the ball. Sicily's a player that's just mopping up in the back half there, and the Hawks are able to get the ball to the other side of the ground and just off to the races again. Inside forward 50, one-on-one, and Gunston, we know what a class act he is, and that was a great kick against the boundary, wasn't it, on his non-preferred.
Well, they've kicked from 11 entries, 5 goals too. So, and you can see the difference, guys, between when Port Adelaide go in there versus Hawthorn. Once again, Trent McKenzie one out with Jack Gunston with plenty of room to move.
So he's done it from the left forward pocket now after doing the very same thing from the right forward pocket. Back in the middle. Ball comes down, another clearance for Hawthorn. Mitchell gets it down to half forward. Reeves comes late, opposed to Skinner, just knocks it forward. Ball on the ground now. Bonner goes in for Port Adelaide. Reeves is there for Hawthorn. Amon had it briefly, then Bonner slipped the hand pass out the back, and Houston probably regrets receiving because he's tackled straight away. So a ball up inside forward 50. Score check, 8-4-52 Hawthorn. Port Adelaide 3-6-24, closing in on half-time.
Reeves wrapped up Lysett in the ruck contest, and there's a free kick going the way of Willem Drew for a high tackle from Jager O'Meara. So in defensive 50, the Power. Called to play on. Drill heads short to Burn Jones. And that's as far as they'll go in the opening half. The crowd is upset at the Adelaide Oval. The Russell Ebert tribute game. We just haven't seen the grit and polish that Port Adelaide can show at times, especially that contested brand that they showed last week against the Brisbane Lions. Hawthorn, though, under Sam Mitchell, what a great start to the season it's been. They overcame a 21-point deficit to North Melbourne last week, and now at halftime at the Adelaide Oval, they lead the Power. It's 8-4-52 to Port Adelaide's 3-6-24. The goal scorers at the major break for the Hawks, 2 to Moore and Wingard, singles to Nash, Gunston and McDonald. For the Power, all individual goal scorers, Houston, Rosie and Lysett. Over at Carrara Stadium, Melbourne lead the Gold Coast 10 minutes into the second quarter, 6-1-37 to 3-3-21. And if you'd like to get in touch with us this evening, the text line 0437 774 774. Scott Camperelli, Stephen Williams, what do you think of the opening half?
Well, for Port supporters, you can hear. I mean, they're just not
stunned.
they're just not playing well. Like, I'm going through the numbers here, Steve, and you know, Port are up in just about every category.
70 more disposals.
Yeah, other than like field position, and that's a clear advantage to Hawthorn by the way that they're actually moving the ball. So they've had less possessions. They're losing contested possession. They're getting smashed at clearance. And Port Adelaide have had more inside 50s, yet they're in front on the scoreboard. So their skill level is, particularly from the defensive half, has been outstanding, the way they've moved the ball through the middle of the ground. And they look like they're just covering the ground better and just a bit cleaner. So from 25 entries, they only have 9 shots on goal and kicked 3 goals, 6. And the 3 goals that Port have kicked have been hard work. Lycett off the ground.
Houston,
one-step kick outside 50. So it's really hard work from there. But I just think they've lost the braveness. And maybe you can actually contribute that to Hawthorn, the way they've done defensively. They've actually forced Port Adelaide slow and wide. And they haven't been able to get that running game going. And I would be staggered if Ken Hentley's not walking in there going, boys, all the numbers are ticking in the right direction. We've got to start shifting this ball and asking Hawthorn a question.
Ken Hinkley's got his mask off.
Because there's so much...
Ken Hinkley's got the mask off, I reckon.
There's so much uncontested possession. And it is because Hawthorn are just forcing Port short. It's just short stuff rather than... You know, we've seen Port Adelaide over the last couple of years look to get the ball into the middle of the ground with that brave kick that opens the play up. But the Hawks have been too good. They've covered that kick, and if it's on, Port have just lost the confidence to use it.
It's been great to have your company throughout the day on Grandstand AFL. Our first contest saw Collingwood defeat Adelaide by 42 points. Brisbane then defeated Essendon by 22 points. Over at Carrara Stadium, Melbourne lead Gold Coast by 10 points, 12 minutes gone in the second. And here at the Adelaide Oval, Hawthorn lead Port Adelaide by 28 points at half-time. 8-4-52 plays 3-6-24. Coming up very shortly, the second half, and I'll give you some scores from around the country as well. But first, let's take the latest from the ABC Newsroom.
ABC News with Satyam Weinstein. Ukraine's president has made a surprise video appearance at Qatar's Doha Forum, calling on the energy-rich nation and others to boost production to counteract the loss of Russian energy supplies. Volodymyr Zelensky is also calling on the UN and other world powers to come to his country's aid, as he has in a series of addresses to other forums since the invasion began last month. He compared the destruction of the port city of Mariupol to Syrian and Russian destruction of the city of Aleppo during the Syrian war. He says Russia's destroying Ukraine's ports and the loss of Ukrainian exports such as wheat will deal a blow to countries worldwide. Meanwhile, European Union leaders have agreed for the first time to make joint gas purchases in a response to surging prices caused by the war in Ukraine. The BBC's Jessica Parker has the details.
The idea is that the European Union uses its collective bargaining power in order to purchase energy at a more favourable rate. The scheme is voluntary, but leaders said they would work together on the common purchase of gas, LNG and hydrogen. Officials have also been ordered to examine the more contentious idea of price caps, a policy which Spain has led the charge on, but is resisted by some countries who fear it could distort the market. The cost of energy in Europe and supply are issues that have been turbocharged following President Putin's decision to invade Ukraine.
The federal government is denying allegations its failure to properly support Australia's Pacific neighbours is giving China room to expand its influence in the region. There are concerns that the government in the Solomon Islands is forging ahead with deeper security and defence ties with China. Labor says it's a result of the coalition's foreign policy and cuts to foreign aid. But government frontbencher Anne Ruston says the coalition's always looked to support Australia's near neighbours and will continue its advocacy despite the latest development.
We are concerned that there could be economic coercion coming into the region, and we'll continue to work with the region, but also with our allies in the US and the UK and Japan and others to make sure that the sovereignty of our region is not undermined by others.
The Prime Minister believes his Veteran Affairs Minister Andrew Gee has been confused about how budget requests are made following an extraordinary claim by the Minister that his demands for funding had been ignored. Mr Gee says he was on the cusp of resigning from Cabinet after only being offered a quarter of the $96 million in extra funding he demanded for his portfolio. The Minister says the full amount has now been promised, with the money required to clear a backlog of 60,000 unprocessed claims for compensation from Defence veterans. Scott Morrison says Mr Gee doesn't understand how budget submissions are made.
It's one thing to make an investment, but you've got to have the confidence that the investments that you're making can then be implemented effectively. And that's the work that the Minister will need to be doing to ensure that the investments we're making can be backed up by the delivery of those investments.
7 more people have died from COVID-19 in South Australia. SA Health says there were 5 women and 2 men aged between 70 and over 100. The state has 151 people in hospital with the virus, including 5 in ICU and 1 on a ventilator, slightly less than yesterday. There were 3,897 new infections reported, down from 4,459 the previous day. WA Health has reported 2 historic COVID deaths as the state records 7,535 new infections. A teenage boy and a man in his 90s have died. There are currently 194 people in hospital and 8 in ICU. Both figures are down from yesterday. WA's total number of active cases is 46,822. A Human Rights Watch researcher says the number of Aboriginal deaths in custody is unacceptable after a man died overnight at Hakia Prison in Perth's south. The 22-year-old Aboriginal man was found in his cell last night. Sophie McNeil says at least 11 Indigenous people died in prison last year.
It's been 3 decades since the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody, and First Nations people in Australia are still unacceptably being incarcerated and dying in prison.
And a movie musical about Diana, Princess of Wales, and a remake of Space Jam starring basketballer LeBron James have taken out the most Razzies, the awards for what are considered the year's worst films. The Razzies announced the winners ahead of the Oscars, giving 5 awards to Diana the Musical, the film version of a Broadway production that closed after just 33 shows. The Razzies have also given actor Bruce Willis his own category, nominating him 8 times for Worst Performance by Bruce Willis, with his work on Cosmic Skin taking the prize. The sci-fi film scored 3% on the rating site Rotten Tomatoes. You're up to date with ABC News.
Did you know that ABC Listen has a little sibling?
Hi.
The ABC Kids Listen app, with music to move and podcasts to play. ABC Kids Listen stimulates curiosity, fires imaginations, and fosters good listening skills.
Wow! That's a funny noise.
Discover a world of entertainment that will spark creativity in the minds of your little ones and get them up and moving. Download ABC Kids Listen today, free from your app store.
The 2022 AFL Premiership season. Grandstand AFL.
On ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
Gunston's leading out. Jones got in front of him but overran the footy. Gunston can gather at the back. Snap from 35. He snuck it through. Just inside the goalpost. It's a major for the Hawks. Wines, centre half forward. He pops it towards Finlayson, outnumbered. Went over the back. Lysett soccers off the deck. Amazing soccer skills from the ruckman to Gunston. Sliding down, takes it. 45 out. Tight angle. He'll chip it short to the left forward pocket. And Moore leading out will take it on the chest. Plays on. Snaps around the body and knew it was home well before it passed the goal umpire. Dylan Moore has 2.
So Lysett, after all that, sends it along. Big pack. Ball comes off hands. Accidentally finds Georgiades. Hand pass back to Houston from 45. Houston with a finish.
Connor Rosie comes in, kicks from 35, back-to-back majors for the Power. McDonald gives it off to Warple, goes long from 60 towards the top of the goal square. Lewis in a one-on-one. McKenzie scored it down, but went straight to Nash, gathers off the bounce, runs into goal. Brilliant finish from Connor Nash. Bruce, who bangs it towards the 50, a tumbler that bounces over the top of McKenzie, works beautifully for Gunston, throws it on the left from the tight angle. Jack Gunston. That's why he's a 3-time premiership player. He's got 2 this evening.
This is the 2022 AFL Premiership season.
On ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
There's an upset brewing at the Adelaide Oval. Hawthorn lead Port Adelaide by 28 points at the major break. 8452 plays 3-6-24 on Grandstand AFL. Great to have your company. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Stephen Williams, Scott Camporelli and Liz Walsh with you this evening. If you'd like to hear the call of the other game on at the moment over at Carrara Stadium, jump on the AFL app. There is an ABC stream available for you there. At the moment, time on in the second quarter, Melbourne lead Gold Coast by 3 points, 6-1-37 to 5-4-34. All individual goal scorers, so 11 of them at the moment. I'll rattle them off. Anderson, Brown, Casbolt, Chol, Davies, Gawn, Jackson, Oliver, Pickett, Sharp and Viney. The leading possession getters from that game. Took Miller has 20 disposals heading into time on the second quarter. Clayton Oliver has 17 touches for the Demons, and the reigning premiers leading by 3 points at the moment. Plenty happening around the country. Round one of the Super Netball kicked off today. The Thunderbirds defeated the Magpies by 4 goals, 54-50. And the Giants defeated the Swifts by 2 goals, 57-55. In the NRL, the Panthers defeated the Knights 38-20. The Eels defeated the Storm 28-24. 51 minutes gone between the Raiders and the Titans, and the away side leading 22-14. In the A-League at the moment, there's a couple of games on. There was a couple of games earlier today as well. Wellington Phoenix defeated Perth Glory 2-1. Western United defeated Brisbane Roar 3-2. And scoreless in both games that are live at the moment. Both of them at the 57-minute mark. Macarthur, Melbourne City, no score there. Central Coast Mariners and Adelaide United, no score there either. And some good news for Adelaide cricket fans. South Australia had a win in the Sheffield Shield up against New South Wales today. They won by 5 wickets. Nathan McSweeney posted 99 not out from 183 deliveries. Couldn't reach the ton before they got the win. That 5-wicket victory for the Redbacks over the Blues. It is AFL action at the moment, though, at the Adelaide Oval. Just upwards, you'd hope, of 28,000 in attendance, which the reason I say that is it looks very similar to our round one attendance when Adelaide hosted Fremantle. It is a full capacity is allowed in, but I don't think they'll be reaching anywhere near 35 to 40,000 tonight, despite it being the Russell Ebert tribute game. Great to have your company on the text line as well this evening. M from Melbourne has messaged in on 0437 774 774 and says, "Hi team, loving the call as usual. Hawthorn is a power club. I'm not surprised how well they are playing. You could see their improvement towards the end of last year with Clarko. I like Ken Hinkley. I do hope his coaching career is not in trouble. Going for Port Adelaide tonight." That's M from Melbourne. It is surprising a little bit how quickly Hawthorn seemed to have rebounded with Sam Mitchell. It's early days, but, Alistair Clarkson led a lot of this young group to where they are now, and now they're up and about at half-time at the Adelaide Oval. They had a nice win last round as well. Their backline seems pretty set, and some of their younger midfielders are getting plenty of the footy, Campo.
Yeah, no, they've impressed me, particularly the way they've moved the ball. I guess under Clarko was a little bit more methodical in their build-up, particularly from an uncontested mark trend. That's what they were renowned for. They didn't really, worry about the contested possession side of the game, but certainly that's a bit of an issue at the moment still for Hawthorn from that point of view. Port Adelaide are well on top with 14 an advantage in there. But as we said just before we went to the break, 25 to 16 clearances, but only from that, Steve, only 7 of those have been able to get inside 50. So I've had a look at the stats at half-time. So they're not really getting bang for their buck with that. So even though they might have gone in there, on the flip side, Hawthorn have been able to defend that really well and then counter-attack. So sometimes in the coach's box you can lose the battle and still win the war, and that's essentially what Hawthorn are doing at the moment. So from that perspective, they've been really solid. So kicked another 3 goals, virtually mirror-imaged of what they did in that first quarter. Kicked 1 from a kick-in, so they've kicked 2 from kick-ins tonight, Hawthorn. So that Ken Hinkley and Chad Corns, who's now doing the defensive back six, they'd be really disappointed with that. That's probably unacceptable, really, to go from coast to coast and get a goal scored in one game, and that's twice in the game.
In half a footy.
In a half a footy.
Sure.
And they've also been able to kick the other 6 goals that come from counter-attacks off, better ball movement, cleaner ball movement, and better spread from Hawthorn.
Well, a lot of those clearances, as you mentioned, they're just rough kicks out of a stoppage, and the Hawks are able to win it back across the half-back line, and that's, as you mentioned, where they're counter-attacking from. So Port have to use that clearance dominance to get some quality ball, whether it's a quick handball to get somebody free that can run out the front of the square and give their forwards a bit of an opportunity, because it has been slim pickings for the likes of Marshall, Georgiadis and Finlayson inside that forward 50, and Rosie's got a goal from a lucky free kick. Lycett's got the one other goal from a lucky soccer, and then Houston put another one through. So none of them really have been methodical ball movement goals, whereas the Hawks, when they've been able to win that ball back in Port Adelaide's forward 50 and move it down the ground, they've really taken the handbrake off. They've moved it quickly. They've opened Port up, and they look really dangerous.
Well, and the other thing, we spoke, about how Port Adelaide going to kick a winning score. Todd Marshall's had 2 possessions for the game. Hasn't had a mark. Motlop's had 4 possession. Finlayson's had 4 possessions. The best of the forward group is no doubt Georgiades. He's had 11, so he's contributed. He's at least trying. You can see him flying. He's presenting up the ground. But other than that, there's not much ahead of the ball for Port Adelaide.
Last week, Finlayson, Georgiades and Marshall combined for 2 goals of the team's 10 from their 55 inside 50s. Tonight, as you just touched on, 2 points combined for the pair in the trio rather, in the first half.
And both of those have been Georgiades.
Yeah, so he's holding his spot. We'll see who Dixon's going to replace out of the other 2 at the moment. The leading stats from this contest. So Carl Amon has 23 touches in the opening half for the Power. Travis Boak has 22 as well. For the Hawks, the best for them is Tom Mitchell with 13. They've actually spread the load quite well tonight. Mitchell has 13, Moore with 11, as does Jager O'Meara and Harry Morrison. So Port Adelaide's best 3, Amon 23, Boak 22, Bonner 18. They can keep going. Their top 5 have more than Hawthorn's first. And the overall disposals, 222 Port Adelaide to Hawthorn's 149. But they're down by 28 points. It's outstanding that Port Adelaide have so much of the footy and are not using it.
Just an efficient side, aren't they, the Hawks? And we probably, you wouldn't have said that about them the last couple of years with the way that they played their footy, but they've been terrific tonight when they've been able to win that ball back. And they haven't allowed Port Adelaide to release that kick in the middle of the ground and open it up for the forwards. You can go either side then when you've got the ball in the middle, but it's all been up and down one side of the ground, which has made it pretty hard when you enter inside your forward 50.
8-4-52 plays 3-6-24. Second half coming up very shortly on Grandstand AFL. And your texts always welcome, 0437 774 774. Have you liked the look of the backline at the Hawks tonight, Campo and Steve? I know that Jaff has been fairly quiet with 3. Granger Barras only has 1 as well, but they were the reason that Hawthorn won last week.
Well, James Sicily is just such a great player back there. He backs himself. He doesn't just punch the ball away. He marks it and starts those defensive chains from his possession. And he's a smart player. He's a good kick. He makes the right decisions. And having him back certainly has made their back half look a lot sterner this season.
Well, and what you highlighted too, Steve, is that Hawthorn have been able to slow Port down. If Port Adelaide come and go, right, we're going to take this game on now. I know I have no doubt that would be the message from Ken, having coached against him. Let's try and flick it around. Let's get it moving. Let's play on. Let's see if we can ask that inexperienced backline, do they really want to defend? And at the moment, Hawthorn have been able to protect their back 6 based on the midfielders and the forwards getting up, making sure that Port Adelaide don't do that.
Looks like Tom Phillips is out there as well, so somebody's obviously come off.
We'll head down to Liswell shortly and see who that might be as teams get set for the second half. Hawthorn leading Port Adelaide by 28
Chad
points.
Wingard looks like.
He's been blocked out on the champion data sheet. We'll see if Liz can find out what is wrong with Chad, because he kicked 2 goals in the opening half for the Hawks. He's a big loss for them.
Might have a hairdresser's appointment.
He's only had the 3 disposals, but importantly he's kicked 2 goals, so he hasn't really had a great game, Chad. But when his moment came, he
similar to our illustrious leader in there, and he's tipped his hair over the summer. Bit of frosting and.
I've just been getting a bit of sun, Campo. It's a natural one. So Chad Wingard off, Tom Phillips subbed on. Second half underway on Grandstand AFL.
Tom Phillips stands on centre wing, just on the logo, opposed to Carl Amon on this broadcast wing, as the umpire prepares to put the ball into the turf. And straight away, Lycett with a big tap forward. Pal Pepper picks it up on the ground, off to Butters, and then back to the left foot of Boak, who goes wide with his kick. Lands just in a little bit of space, as it turns out. Warple picks it up close to the boundary line out on centre wing. Sends it forward for the Hawks. McAvoy gets a hand pass from the bottom of the pack. Now he receives it after Moore gave it to Warple, gave it to McAvoy. Then it went to Newcomb, and they trundle it forward through Nash with a kick. 25 from goal. Looked like a mark. Umpire said it was. Big Lewis up there. And Lewis takes it 20 metres out straight in front.
Beautiful kick, wasn't it? Just to the advantage of the big forward. He hasn't done a lot tonight, Lewis, but they were really nice, strong hands. The Port defenders were really scrambling back, but just couldn't get there. And what a start this will be for the Hawks.
6 contested marks and 3 goals won in round 1. Here's Lewis straight in front, and his kick is straight. And Port Adelaide is in the well at the moment. Hawthorn with the first goal of the second half. The Hawks move along to 9-4-58. Port Adelaide 3-6-24. Minute gone in the third term. Liz Walsh on the boundary.
Yeah, we saw Wingard come from the ground late in that second term. He went straight to the mats. He had about 3 trainers all talking around him. He still has his footy boots on the bench here, but I'm just confirming the injury with Hawthorn now.
Hasn't have seemed to have bothered them early. Mitch Lewis with the opening score of the third quarter. Game high 34-point lead to the Hawks.
Once again, that was a poor ball use, wasn't it? Port won the clearance. I think it was Boak that had it, but couldn't hit Finlayson, who dived to mark it. He fumbled it, and from that point on, the Hawks controlled the footy and were able to take it down and score.
Bounce in the middle. Lysett up against Reeves. Lysett just smashes it forward with the fist to Powell Pepper off the bounce. Gathers and gives to Wines. Errant kick that tumbles towards the 50. Leading out to meet it was Frost. He beat Georgiades. Handball wasn't great to Sicily. Mops it up though. Gives it to Scrimshaw. Over the top. Puts it into space for Newcomb. Ducks and weaves through traffic. Shakes off 2 tacklers. Puts it out in front of the sub Phillips. He's in front of the benches on the western side. Pops it short. Nice little chip kick. Hits Warple. Just in front of centre wing. Warple looking for some options up forward for the Hawks. Plays on. Runs around Burne-Jones. Heads into the left forward pocket. Jonas in front position. Rose high. Stood his ground up against Bruce. Takes the intercept mark for the Power.
Jonas saying, we want to move it. We want to spread it. And they can't. Hawthorn shut them down. He goes down the line with a kick. Scrimshaw thought his arm was grabbed. So did the umpire. It'll be a free kick to Scrimshaw. He'll go back and send his side forward again. 4 games of the Gold Coast after being picked up at number 7 in the 2016 draft. Inside he goes on the logo on centre wing. Sicily backs up, takes the mark. Now he goes straight to centre half forward and beyond with a long kick. Big pack. Skinner knocks it down. Moore roves it for Hawthorn. Taken in a tackle, had to release it. Oh, and then he makes his own tackle on Burton. Scrubby old kick, got it out of defensive 50 just. Finlayson picked it up for Port Adelaide.
Gave it back to Motlop, who retreats all the way to the scoreboard pocket to Jonas. He's alone in space. And now we'll go back to left half-back. Hits Bonner. Port Adelaide still slow with their ball movement to start this third quarter. We'll chip inbound to Amon. Backs into defensive 50. Over the top he'll go with his kick. Houston marks. Doesn't have a lot to go to. Called to play on, so he'll bang it down the eastern side. Jaff gets a rise from behind, but Wines was in front. Clunked it, handed it off to Boak. Piercing kick into the 50. Rosie leading out, takes it on the chest. Man on the mark is left. Rosie could have played on. The crowd kind of wanted him to, but he'll go back, have his set shot. Man on the mark, 40 out. Slight angle to the left. Connor Rosie looking for his second of the evening.
Probably the best ball movement inside Port's forward 50 all night. It was a good lead by Rosie. He went towards the goals, then hooked back and lost his player. Needs to finish now.
Long run up for Connor Rosie. Had an ankle tweak against the Lions last week, but looks good to go tonight. Kicks from 48. It's across the face. Minor score on the right-hand side for Port Adelaide. Down by 33 points. Early stages of the third term. 9-4-58 plays 3-7-25. Liz Walsh on the boundary.
Yeah, just confirming with Hawthorn that Chad Wingard's out thanks to a tight hammy.
So short kick in from Scrimshaw. Found Phillips, who then gave it back to Scrimshaw by hand after he took the mark, and then down the line with a kick from Scrimshaw to O'Meara. They've got it to half back. O'Meara thinks, let's swap sides. So he goes back inside, attacking 50 or defensive 50, and it's cut off. It was cut off by Butters, and he socketed it forward for Cal Pepper to kick the goal. Oh, is that the break they need, Port Adelaide? Port Adelaide get their fourth goal of the evening, 4-7-31, trailing Hawthorn 9-4-58. Big mistake defensively from the Hawks that time.
Oh, it was well done by Butters. He read that. Actually, all three of them read it pretty well. It was a high-flighted ball. That's always the challenge when you're trying to shift the ball out of your back half and you've got instead of a short, sharp one, you go a flighted one. But Butters, I mean, he's tough as teak, Steve. Just went back with a flight, copped a lick and brought it to ground, and then clever little touch by Rosie just to put it in the path of Powell Pepper, and they finished. So, yep, maybe that's what they need, just a bit of a spark.
Yeah, you wonder where the next goal was coming from. So the Hawks have given it to Port, so can they make the most of it now and start to put a couple together?
Hawthorn by 27, Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Stephen Williams, Scott Camporelli and Liz Walsh with you this evening. Liz.
Jeremy Finlayson has just been in the hands of trainers. It looks like his quad has required some work, so I'll keep an eye on that for you.
In the middle, Sam Powell-Pepper shrugs a couple of tacklers. Another clearance for Port Adelaide, but the kick was too hot. McGuinness rises above Motlop and exits defensive 50 promptly for the Hawks. Puts it out into space for Ward. The second game of marks out on the eastern side. Josh Ward coming up to disposal number 10. Tries to wheel around the man on the mark. Saw it coming, so he'll bang it long. Gunston with the sit, couldn't clunk it. Bruce was there, handed it off to Mitchell, wrapped up quickly. Bruce was sat on, no free kick. McGuinness now the tackler. Wrapped up Bono, there's a bit of afters as well. Port Adelaide keep going. Sin swung in the tackle, didn't know where to go. Handball came out. Dersma dives onto it with Phillips on his back. Paddled it to Rosie, who gets it back to him. Dersma flat kick down the lines with the diving Powell Pepper. Marks on the logo, centre wing, western side. 27-point lead to the Hawks.
Powell Pepper sees activity on the other side of the ground and he sends it right across the square to Lysett. The big ruckman draws one, hand pass over the top. Got away with it. It eventually ends with Jonas. Then wide he goes with a hand pass to Butters into the pocket. And Marshall leads and takes the mark just inside the boundary line in the left forward pocket, 35 metres out from goal. Big Lysett playing the
free kick off the
role.
ball. Oh, be careful.
And there's a little bit of push and shove there. Sicily involved, and he's being taken to ground. And what does the umpire think of this? He's watching it all and saying, boys, just stop it. So
it'll either be a 50-metre or a reversal.
Well, they've let it go, and Marshall, meanwhile's taking his kick. He sent it up to the goal square. Reeves above everybody for Hawthorn, and then the big ruckman bites off more than he can chew with his little pass. Burton takes the intercept mark, which was basically a gift, and he will go back on the right side of the goal post now, about a 45-degree angle and about 40 metres out.
Sicily's come back at Rosie again. They broke. The umpire came between them and he's raced from the left forward pocket to give him a shirt front. This isn't going away.
He probably figures he's got nothing to lose. Burton comes in for goal, leaves it on the post. He sat it out to the left. It came back slightly, hit the post. Minor score for the Power. 26 the margin in favour of Hawthorn. Jath brought the ball in quickly and found Scrimshaw with a short pass into the left back pocket, and off the ball some more's happening, and this one will be 50. It'll be Mitchell who's been bowled over, and it was Butters the offender who didn't mind telling Mitchell it was too soft.
Oh, it's just undisciplined. Do it.
In fact it was Lysett, but anyway.
Bit of feeling in this game. Newcombe goes short to Mitchell, who marks on the logo. 26-point lead, the Hawks. He'll give it off. Scrimshaw.
Great kick.
Nice curve into the 50. Reeves marks just inside the paint. Spins around. Pops it towards the right forward pocket. Mitch Lewis back with the flight. Couldn't clunk it. McKenzie goes to ground. He's wrapped up. Houston wrenches it out, but it ricochets off his kick into the goal square. Sits beautifully for O'Meara. Went to ground, and his handball wasn't great centrally. Through with the half volley. Exits defensive 50, and Lysett looked to slap it clear. Ricocheted off the chest of Jaff. Boundary throw in to come left half forward.
Well, they got lucky again there. It was two uncontested marks inside forward 50. Was it Lewis that dropped that mark just inside the square?
So ball back into play. Reeves brings it down. It's picked up by Drew, and he's taken into the turf. Umpire said, give it to me. So Left half forward for Hawthorn, attacking the scoreboard end of the ground. Dersner off the ruck contest.
Free kick off the ball. Sicily's just whacked Rosie behind the ball. He's prone to do that, Sicily. He's just got to let it go.
So that's an advantage of some 30-40 metres onto centre wing for Port Adelaide. Rosie takes the kick.
Heads towards the 50. Finlayson had front position but couldn't take it. Went straight through his hands. McGuinness can crumb for the Hawks. Wow. Gave it to Frost, but his handball wasn't great to Jaff. Diving onto it, Sim could have been taken without it. Port fans screaming for it. Finlayson gives it to Motlop. He delivers. And it's on once again in attacking 50 for the Power. Down to a 20-point game, but there is so much feeling in this. Hawthorn lead at the Adelaide Oval. But momentum going the way of the Power. Back-to-back goals for them. 9-4-58 plays 5-8-38. 11 gone in the third on Grandstand AFL.
Just some Hawks mistakes. Just that handball was just way too hard, wasn't it?
Oh, but you go back here, Steve. It's just undisciplined by Sicily. He's done it virtually his whole career. I don't mind guys playing on the edge, but when you're throwing head-high shots and throwing blokes on the ground off the ball just to try and think you're tough behind the ball, he can't get away with that anymore. And that's cost his team a goal and also momentum. If I was Sam Mitchell, I'd be saying, come here, young man, come and sit down and just cool your jets.
Well, he hasn't done that, so ball back in the middle. Umpire puts it into the turf. Nash with a little tap out towards Mitchell. Got it to centre wing. Phillips was there. Drew came through for Port Adelaide. Now through Wines, they'll go forward. Scrub kick, though. It was just off the end of the boot.
That's that clearance we're talking about. You win the clearance, but you're just giving it straight back to the opposition.
Yep. Scrimshaw with the intercept mark at half back for Hawthorn.
Pops it short to Ward, who marks centre wing. Has a runner outside, and Mitchell gives it to him, but was tackled by Finlayson as he kicked. Enough pressure to cause an errant disposal. Nash can mop it up, headed to the 50. Lewis got a rise, couldn't clunk it. Spills down. Gunston, the crummer, hands it over the top looking for Morrison. Great effort from Skinner to stick a hand out and cut it off. And Rosie can clear to Wines, who marks just inside defensive 50. He wants to go. He's spot Finlayson out on the western side. He's outnumbered, crunched in the contest. McGuinness can crumb for the Hawks. They can go once again.
Ward sends it short. They kept it on this side of the ground. There were possibilities inside. And the kick just a little bit high for Mitchell. Ball knocked over the boundary line.
Score update at Carrara. Half-time, Melbourne lead Gold Coast by 14 points. 9-1-55 to 6-5-41.
Ball to be thrown in slightly ahead of centre wing for Hawthorn. McAvoy comes to the front, knocks it down to Mitchell, who's picked himself up after that last incident. Tumbles a ball forward. Ball off hands. Nash picked it up. The Irishman inside with a hand pass. And bang, down goes McAvoy. Motlop jumps on him afterwards, and the umpire says, give it to me, but that's got the crowd going. And to be honest, you won't see that too often from Motlop.
Love the passion at the moment out there on the field. Finlayson tapped it down. Moore came through though for the Hawks. Hands it out to McDonald. Over the top to Morrison. From centre half forward. Loads up from 55 to the goal square. And Gunston got rid of his opponent. Takes the chest mark in the goal square. Steps over McKenzie as well for good measure. Just to let him know what he's done. This will be easy for Jack Gunston. He'll wheel around on the slide angle. Puts it on the left. And he's got three. Jack Gunston pushes it back out to a 26-point lead for the Hawks. 10-4-64. Plays 5-8-38. And we have travelled 14 minutes into the third quarter on Grandstand AFL.
It was just great work, wasn't it? Connor McDonald was the player that was able to open Port up with that handball, and then the Hawks just had players backing up, were able to share it with the handball, and then that deep kick into the goal square, one-on-one. Gunston, just too much experience and class for McKenzie.
Well, unfortunately, a young player, Sin, on that open side wing, Morrison just got in behind him. So when you come in, the balance around there, you could never give that outside. He pressed in, got the overlap handball, as you called, Steve, and then it was virtually game over.
So for all Port's power and passion in this third term, it's 2 goals apiece and a 26-point margin still for the Hawks. Ball back in the middle. McAvoy perhaps the better of the ruckman. Picked up by Nash in the end after Wines gave a hand pass. Nash was taken down in the tackle by Boak. Free kick Port Adelaide. Boak just drops it in short. It was very short, I thought. The umpire didn't. Wines shares the hand pass straight away with Bonner. Down to half forward they go. Ball spilt and then spilled out the front by Amon and then overrun by the big ruckman Lycett, picked up by Newcomb, and they're away. Hawthorn.
McDonald over the top, handballed into space for O'Meara. He's got 2 on his tail. Jonas and Wines with him. Wines shoves him off as Jonas can gather. Great teamwork. The Power now back up the eastern side. Jonas wanted to put it in front of Marshall, and it just bounced inside the field of play, and they've called deliberate.
He just had to use Wines there. That was a 2v1, and he just had to use the extra number.
Surprising decision considering Marshall was on the lead. Granger Barras will bring it back in for the Hawks. Heads to right half forward to a contest. It beats the pack. Jones is at the back. Retreats to Houston and skies it for the Power back to the eastern side. Granger Barras read it best. The first round pick leading out ahead of Marshall. Intercepts for the Hawks. Wastes little time. Chips it short to Mitchell. He's at right half forward.
Really poor kick by Houston, and he's one of Port's good ball users and just blasted it up in the air. Just need to show a bit of poise and find a shorter target.
Mitchell coming around on his left. 5th possession of the quarter. Sends it high. Lewis pack mark. And this should be another goal for Hawthorn. He's marked it some 15 metres out. And he already has one for the evening. Just came in from the side and outmarked Skinner.
Well, Skinner and Houston, no one put any body work on him at all and just allowed him a free jump at the ball.
Lewis to make it a 32-point margin. Eases on the kick. Happy with the result. Goal for Hawthorn. 17 minutes down in the third quarter, and Hawthorn have their third of the quarter. Lewis has his second. 11-4-70, plays Port Adelaide 5-8-38. The margin 32 points, 17 minutes in to the third term. It's Grandstand AFL across ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital. Stephen Williams, Scott Camporelli.
They've just been really good, the Hawks. Port have come at them a couple of times in this match, but they've been able to steady go down and then kick that important goal. Port got 2 in a row, looking to get 3, but weren't able to do it. The Hawks were able to put the last couple in and just able to keep a very healthy margin between the two teams.
Hawthorn unfazed by the substitution of Chad Wingard with a hamstring problem. Tom Phillips is on the ground, has 2 touches so far this term. And the visitors lead by 32. In the middle, an awkward bounce that favoured Lycett. Got it down to Boak. Sold some candy around Warple. Heads to centre half forward. Sicily with one arm. Brought it in up against Drew. Now out to the eastern side he goes. Put it in front of Moore. He got rid of Jones. Read it beautifully off the bounce. Chips down the line to Bruce. Spoiled from Burton. Spills down to Phillips. Handball forward for the Hawks to McDonald. He's on the boundary line. Stays in play but turns it over. Gives it to Wines. His handball was too hot for Butters. Mitchell can mop it up. Puts it over the top to Warple. Back with the flight. Nice mark. Hands it off to Ward, who can run into the 50 from 40. Great conversion from the youngster.
They're rattled, Port.
Josh Ward, his first goal in AFL footy. Outstanding finish. Pick 7 in the 2021 draft. And he's on the board in the AFL. Hawthorn out to a game-high 38-point lead in the third quarter. 12-4-76, plays 5-8-38, approaching time on.
I'm just looking at the body language, Steve. That's always a telltale sign as to how engaged a team is when they're under pressure, and potentially a game that they should be winning, but they're not. To Hawthorn's credit, they're playing out of their skin. They don't even look like at Port Adelaide at the moment. The back 6 from Port Adelaide are disengaged. Their hands on hips. They're not looking like they've got any energy, and the midfield's getting absolutely towed up with Hawthorn's ability to spread.
38 points the margin in favour of the Hawks. Out of the middle, it's Ward again. Got the loose ball off the ruck. Down towards half forward. Burn Jones sits under it. Umpire spots a free kick block. Free kick will go to Bruce for Hawthorn. Inside 50,
Great
pulls the kick beautifully. Chest of Lewis. Sliding in, taking a chest mark. And nobody else was a chance to get near that ball.
Well, it's just really poor by Port Adelaide wingers. That was is it Bonner on this side wing? Can't see who it is at the moment, but like, just too slow. I mean, that's where all the space was going to be, Steve. They need to get back and fill that gap in to help Mackenzie. Otherwise, this is exactly what's going to happen.
Lewis converts, and that game-high margin now becomes 44 points. Hawthorn, 20 minutes into the third term, 13-4-82. Port Adelaide, 5-8-38. Who saw this coming? Liz Walsh, did you?
No, not at all, and neither did the crowd sitting behind me either. They are silent. Just quickly, Dan Houston, in another concern for Port, it looks like he's been doing a fitness test with trainers on his hamstring, so we've got to keep an eye on that too.
You look at all those statistics now, and it's Hawthorn starting to, particularly for this quarter, starting to control the game, and their class, their run and spread, as you mentioned, Campo, just ripping Port apart.
3 goals for Mitch Lewis in the quarter, 4 unanswered in a row.
Which you wouldn't have said, Steve, before the game, would you? No. Really, in terms of Mitchell and O'Meara and Warple. I mean, they're not super spreaders, particularly through the middle of the ground.
Tapped down by Lysett. Boat couldn't gather cleanly. Mitchell can. Gives it off to Morrison for the Hawks. Bats away, Pal Pepper. Ward tries to do the same but can't, and his kick isn't good at all. Trickles to Dersma, who can gather for Port. Hands it on to Sin, who's got Jaff all around him. Fans wanted to hold. They're not going to get it. Morrison wrapped up in the tackle from Burne-Jones.
Because he played that well, didn't he?
Ball up at centre-half forward for the Power. On the reset, Lysett in front position against McAvoy. Tapped down to Ward. Quick clearance around the body for the Hawks. Bouncing through the logo on the western side. Jones paddles it to his advantage and races away into the 50 for the Power. 2-on-2 awaits. Marshall caught behind. Frost went to ground, but Jaff was at the back. Kicks across the goal face and hits up the medical sub, Tom Phillips.
Phillips goes with his non-preferred right foot, dangerous. Nash forced into a contest opposed to Burton. In with help came Butters, and he's smashed straight away in a couple of tackles. And we'll get a ball up just outside the 50. Hawthorn have done a job this quarter. They haven't had a miss. They've kicked 5 goals straight to 2 from Port Adelaide. Out of the ruck contest, Lysett puts it forward. No mark. Brilliant vision from Sicily. Middle of the pack, just hand pass wide. And he found Phillips, who gave it back to Hardwick, and they clear their area again. Going back with a flight pick, McAvoy took the mark.
Getting better as the game goes on, McAvoy.
His first game of the season, missed round 1 due to COVID protocols alongside Luke Bruce. Pops it short to Ward. His kick to Mitchell wasn't great. Has to run onto it. Cut off by Burton, becomes the tackler Mitchell. Burton gets it to Wines. Out to the logo, western side, hits Dersma all alone. Piercing kick was beautifully placed towards Sin, but Jaff came across with speed. Cut it off with the intercept mark. Now the Hawks through the western side. Hands it to Scrimshaw. Down the line. Moore used both hands there. Bruce got rid of his opponent. Had to chase Skinner, who handballed it over the top. And Jones will have scored it over the line.
That was a pretty obvious push, wasn't it? No one.
44-point lead to the Hawks.
Thought the push was in the back, and it was also way early, I thought. But anyway, ball's been thrown in. Left half forward on this broadcast side for Hawthorn. Out of the ruck, Lysett with a hand pass to Jones. Lockie Jones, one bounce through the centre square. Awful hand pass. Sets up. Drew got rid of the ball, and Port Adelaide eventually get it back through Houston. Gave it to Amon by hand down to half forward. Found Finlayson. Finlayson takes the mark. Tries to send the pass to Boak. Boak was in a little bit of space, but he couldn't hit him up. And Hawthorn scrambled it across the boundary line, 25 around from the goal face.
Geez, they've defended well, that back 6. They've got the extra number back. We saw GF before. There's always an extra number getting back to help and support, but they've hardly been beaten one-on-one.
GF's closing speed is something to see, isn't it?
Toss back into play. Port Adelaide's attacking 50. Marshall in the ruck contest with McAvoy. Both held each other. No one could get the tap. Pal Pepper crumbed it at the back. Snaps from 40. A bit of spice on it for Sam Pal Pepper. He's got 2. The spark that Port Adelaide might just need at the Adelaide Oval. Down to a 38-point deficit. Hawthorn 13-4-82. The Power 6-8-44. Time on in the third quarter on Grandstand AFL.
He's actually been one of the midfielders that looks like he's actually had a little bit of spark about him tonight.
Yeah, I agree. Nice forward 50 ball. Just tapped it, ran into his open space. Tom Phillips probably won't want to see that again on the replay, but he's a bit of a raging bull through there, and sometimes you get lucky, but really nice finish.
So Hawthorn had kicked 4 in a row. Now Port responds. And close to three-quarter time. We're 25 minutes in. It's a 38-point game in favour of the Hawks. What of Port Adelaide? How many punches have they got left? It's back in the middle. Umpire gives a warning. It'll be a warning, I think, against Hawthorn for 6.
Port Adelaide.
Port, yeah.
Lockie Jones and Dersma didn't quite get themselves organised.
Okay. So the ball goes in the air. Tap down comes to Drew in the end. There was a high tackle by Newcomb. As a result, Port Adelaide free kick. They'll get the centre break. Drew looks around. Now he decides to go. Sends it long and high. Should be easy pickings, you'd think, for the defenders. Frost gets the crumb. Hand pass forward towards Morris, and he's tracked down as he goes towards the line. Pal Pepper inspired. As you said, boys, he's up and about. Takes him over the boundary line.
Absolute bull, Sam Pepper. Toss back into play. Port Adelaide's attacking 50. Lysak got the tap down to Amon. Over the head, hand pass to Dersma. Lowers the eyes, but kicked it too high. Over the head of Boak, and Granger Barras can intercept. It looked beautiful the way he approached it, but the disposal was poor. Hawthorn have it in defensive 50. Liz Walsh on the boundary.
Yeah, I think Port might be about to activate their medical sub too. Jackson Mead just on the ground. He's being warmed up by the trainers, and he's also done a few little jogs as well.
Gunston from the back pocket sends it long for Hawthorn. Bottom of the pack that forms. Might have been... I'm not sure he got it out for Hawthorn, but now Jaff's got it. Now he's taken in a tackle. Jones comes through, gives it to Butters. Off he went to Boak. Snap goes from him, and he just pulls it too far. Minor score for Port Adelaide. It's Tom Phillips, now that I reflect on what happened. He was way at the base of a pack of about 10 players and managed to scramble the ball out for Hawthorn.
Be disappointed with that, Trav. He had a little bit more time than probably what he thought.
37-point lead to the Hawks. Late stages of the third over at Carrara. Third quarter's just started there. Melbourne lead Gold Coast by 8. You can hear the ABC call of that on the AFL app. Hawthorn exit defensive 50. Big pack awaits. Jonas brought it down. Jones now gives it to Houston. Handballs off towards Drew. Then Bonner through the logo eastern side. Gives it off to Amon. Then forward to Skinner. Skies it high to the left forward pocket. Coming out, Georgiades nudged out of it by Frost, spills to ground, gathered by Finlayson on the left. It's bouncing towards goal, but through for a minor score. Back-to-back behinds for the Power, but they've had the last 3 scoring attempts. 6-10-46 plays Hawthorn's 13-4-82. 36-point lead to the Hawks. Port Adelaide running out of time to find something before three-quarter time.
So it'll be Hardwick. Waits, then plays on. And then sends it wide, just inside the boundary line. Scrimshaw, their preferred kicker out of defence, takes the mark just outside defensive 50. Hawks will just slow things down as we close in on three-quarter time. Scrimshaw down the line with his kick towards the logo. At the front of the pack, O'Meara gave it to Mitchell. Just like clockwork, Mitchell got it down to half forward. Through come Warple, took a big bump, went to ground, got the hand pass back to O'Meara. Great vision forward of the play, finds Lewis in a bit of space inside forward 50, the big tall forward. Takes the ball 45 from goal. Going for his 4th of the night. 4th of the quarter, in fact. So they're just slowing things down. We might have a quick chance to go to Liz.
Yeah, I think there's concerns over Trent McKenzie. He's being surrounded by 3 different trainers. He looks a bit ginger on that left knee that he injured last week.
Miraculous comeback after he looked like he had done his ACL last week in a fall against Brisbane. So Lewis, meanwhile, lining up for goal. Hits the 50, leans back on the kick, and what a kick it was. Great finish. Hawks just steady, close to three-quarter time. 29 and a half minutes into the third term. And Lewis has 4 for the night. The Hawks have 14-4-88. Port Adelaide 6-10-46.
Just their ball movement inside 50 once again. Just a little bit of poise from their mids. They're not panicking, kicking the ball up in the air. They're just taking that little bit of extra time, lifting their eyes and finding forward targets, and it's been such a difference between both sides tonight when they've gone inside their forward 50.
Over at Carrara, Melbourne leading Gold Coast by 14 points. 4 minutes gone in the third there. What a performance from Mitch Lewis. 4 in a quarter. They call it the Premiership quarter, and he's had a match-winning performance.
And they've kicked so well for goal, haven't they? 14-4.
Bounce in the middle. Reeves up against Lysett. The power ruckman won it down a boat. Shrugs the Newcombe tackle. Bangs it into the 50. Puts it out towards Jones. A bit too high for him. Spills in the left forward pocket. Finlayson came out. Overran the footy. And the ball will trickle over the line to be tossed back into play.
Desperation stakes when you're putting a nuggety half-back flanker forward, Steve.
Yes, isn't it?
Expecting Lockie Jones to try and hit the scoreboard for you, but I guess you've got to try something.
Interesting decision. Meanwhile, off the back of the pack, here's Lockie Jones. Just socket straight to him off the back of the pack by Hawthorn. Now in a bit of space. Pell Pepper goes to the left foot, screws it across the body, and Port Adelaide has another one.
Well done.
Late on in the quarter, just what they needed. 7-10-52 Port Adelaide. 3 goals for Powell Pepper, and all of those have come in this quarter. Hawthorn 14-4-88. The margin sits at 36 points. We're beyond 31 minutes in the third term.
Just didn't panic, did he? He had a few Hawthorn players around him, but just watched the ball, took possession, got under his left foot, and a terrific snap around the body. He's been one Port player that's just kept plugging away. 7 disposals this quarter for his 3 goals.
Well, he just plays unconditional, doesn't he, Steve? You know, he just has the energy, he's physical, he has some presence. And once again, it's a little bit of an indictment on that forward group, that makeshift, I guess, forward that's come from the midfield that's kicked 3 goals in a quarter.
Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Scott Camporelli, Stephen Williams with you in the middle. Bounced off a couple of heads. Powell Pepper bursting off forward, gathers, caught in the tackle from McGuinness and was slung after it. Hawthorn will race away though. Newcombe up towards centre half forward. Off the bounce, Burton can cut it off. Hands it to Burn-Jones, then Bonner. Chips it out to right half back. Nice kick in front of Butters, who marks ahead of Jaff. Doesn't waste any time. Down the wing he goes. Hits Amon. Spins into the 50. Siren will beat them as Marshall collides with Georgiades. The Hawthorn defenders get around each other. They're very pleased with that performance, and why wouldn't you be? 36 points their lead away from home at the Adelaide Oval. This young Hawks side is looking to go 2-0 to start season 2022. Port Adelaide are an absolute mess right now. 7-10-52 to Hawthorn's 14-4-88. They unravel the power at home, which is not what you want in the Russell Ebert tribute game. The goal scorers heading into the final quarter. Mitch Lewis has 4, all of them kicked in the third term. Jack Gunston has 3, Chad Wingard has 2 and has been subbed out of the game with a hamstring injury for Tom Phillips. Dylan Moore also has 2, singles to Nash, Ward and McDonald. For Port Adelaide, 3 to Powell Pepper, the shining light on tonight's performance. Singles to Houston, Motlop, Rosie and Lysett. It's been great to have your company this evening on Grandstand AFL. It's been a busy day of football. Collingwood defeated Adelaide by 42 points. Brisbane defeated Essendon by 22 points. Over at Carrara, Melbourne lead Gold Coast by 7. 10-1-61 to 8-6-54. 7.5 gone in the third. The text line, if you'd like to get in touch, 0437 774 774. The final quarter coming up next on Grandstand AFL.
ABC, your trusted source of accurate and timely emergency information.
We've had the ABC on basically all afternoon listening.
There's so much going on, and getting news is a priority.
Well, I'm a fan of the ABC.
It must be love, love, love.
I listen to the ABC every day. I'm extremely grateful.
ABC Radio, reliable source for information.
On radio, on the ABC Listen app, and the ABC Emergency website.
It must be love, love, love.
ABC, stay connected.
The 2022 AFL Premiership season. Grandstand AFL.
On ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
McAvoy, then it went to Newcombe and they will trundle it forward through Nash with a kick 25 from goal. Looked like a mark, umpire said it was. And Lewis takes it 20 metres out straight in front. Here's Lewis straight in front and his kick is straight. Gomira thinks let's swap sides. So he goes back inside a defensive 50, and it's cut off. It was cut off by Butters, and he socketed it forward for Cal Pepper to kick the goal.
McGuinness can crumb for the Hawks. Gave it to Frost, but his handball wasn't great to Jack. Diving onto it, Sim could have been taken without it. Port fans screaming for it. Finlayson gives it to Metlock. He delivers. Finlayson tapped it down. Moore came through though for the Hawks. Hands it out to McDonald. Over the top to Morrison. From centre half forward. Loads up from 55 to the goal square. And Gunston. This will be easy for Jack Gunston. He'll wheel around on the slight angle. Puts it on the left. And he's got 3.
Mitchell coming around on his left. 5th possession of the quarter. Sends it high. Lewis pack mark. Lewis eases on the kick. Happy with the result. Goal for Hawthorn.
Mitchell can mop it up. Puts it over the top to Warple. Back with the flight. Nice mark. Hands it off to Ward, who can run into the 50 from 40. Great conversion from the youngster.
They're rattled, Port.
This is the 2022 AFL Premiership season.
On ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
An outstanding performance from Sam Mitchell's Hawks at the Adelaide Oval. A 36-point lead at three-quarter time. They've led at every break this evening. They've had multiple goal scorers. Mitch Lewis took over the third with 4 majors in the term. Jack Gunston's delivering. Chad Wingard did before he was subbed as well. They've got the answers all around the ground, and Port Adelaide are staring down the barrel of an 0-2 start to the year, with a showdown to come on Friday night against the Adelaide Crows. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Stephen Williams, Scott Camporelli and Liz Walsh with you on Grandstand AFL over at Carrara Stadium. Melbourne lead Gold Coast by 8 points, 10 minutes into the third, 10-2-62 to 8-6-54. The text line, if you'd like to get in touch, 0437 774 774. Dave has done just that, and asking both Steve and Campo, what a bad day for SA footy fans. Where are Farrell and Bergman? Mackenzie was injured and should have been left out. I'm very sad. It's not really team selection. I think that's the problem for the Power at the moment.
Mackenzie probably wouldn't have played if Aaliyah hadn't gone down, but they lost Aaliyah. They couldn't afford to lose Mackenzie as well. But Port just haven't looked like it really from the start, have they? Hawthorn have looked a lot sharper. They've looked a lot cleaner with the way they move their footy, and they've just got a plan. They've been able to get back, block up the Port forward 50, and when they've won the ball back, they've got it quickly into their forward line with plenty of open space and room for the forwards to move.
Mick's not as optimistic on the text line. They're up by 36 points, the Hawks, but he says, as a Hawks supporter, I'm still not confident we're home. We've lost by 50 points to Melbourne last year when the scores were level at three-quarter time.
Well, I'm probably a little bit in his court. I've seen Port Adelaide come from behind. They can kick 6 or 7 once they get their tails up as well, but there's no sign of that at the moment, to be fair. I mean, the numbers are in Port's favour, but the numbers don't necessarily telling the true story of the game. But, having looked through some of the other stats, time in forward half, Port Adelaide at 55%, Hawthorn 45%. From 34 inside 50s, Hawthorn have kicked 14-4. I mean, that's super efficient. I haven't seen that for a long time. And that's essentially part of the reason why they're in front. But they've been able to get deep one-on-one entries, which allowed them to get probably easier scores or easier set shots on goal, whereas Port Adelaide have relying on half chances, to be fair.
I think that answers James from Q's text, who says, good call so far, guys. Do you think Hawthorn can keep the momentum going, or will Port make a comeback? So Campo thinks it's a possibility. Steve, do you think Port have any chance?
Well, we've seen them kick two that's the most I think they've kicked in a row all night, and the Hawks just have had the answers every time. So, it's pretty hard to see Port getting back from here.
Another texter says, Carlton v Hawthorn next Sunday looks like a blockbuster. Loving the unpredictability of this season so far. Not wrong.
Go the Blues.
36 points the lead to the Hawks. What can Port Adelaide do at home in the Russell Ebert tribute game to take something away from this? Bounce in the middle favours McAvoy. Wins it down for the Hawks in front of O'Meara. Tackled quickly by Rosie, but got a handball away. Morrison now back to Ward. Lowers the eyes for Newcomb, but a bit too hot. Tapped it down to O'Meara, rather. Got it out eventually. Mead's now on for the Power. He hands it out to Jones. Races away from Morrison. Through the western wing. Piercing kick up to left half forward, but coming across, Sam Frost, as they've done all night. Intercept marking.
I'll tell you what they have done is they've thrown Marshall to full back and Skinner to full forward. They've swapped keys.
That's the old under 15s trick.
It is. Yeah, your dad would have done that back in the day, Steve. Well, to be fair, Marshall's had 3 possessions. So he'd want to do something.
Well, he'll have a chance now because Hawthorn received a free kick on centre wing. Gunston sent it to half forward to Warple, puts it into space. Here comes Lewis and Marshall. Lewis jumped high. He hurt Houston, I think it was, who was in front of him. Then might have been Burton. I'll come back to that. Ball back to centre wing. Holding free kick. And it'll go to Hardwick against Powell Pepper.
It's Houston, Crossy.
Okay, and he's back on his feet now, but he was hit hard by Lewis, who basically, as a forward should, said, don't stand in my way.
Cop this.
Hardwick bangs it towards the 50 for the Hawks. McAvoy's in front position, rising up. Houston knocked it down to Burn-Jones. Tapped it to Butters, he couldn't gather. McDonald didn't get a kick away either. McAvoy coming through for the Hawks. Tries to gather. There's a player down behind play meanwhile. Clearance for Port Adelaide out towards the western side. Bounces towards the benches and Powell Pepper will have scored it over. Looks to be James Warple, who pops a high hit. Just trying to gather the footy, but he's up and about. Trainer's coming to check on him, but seems to be okay. Hawthorn by 36.
Smack bang between the interchange gates. Stands the boundary umpire, throws it back into play. The ball, that is. Newcomb swats it forward, actually smashes it forward. And now he thought about smashing Amon in a tackle, realised he was over the line and thought that'll do. So, ball to be thrown in again, slightly ahead of centre wing for Hawthorn. Hawks by 36 at three-quarter time, and that's how it stands at the moment.
Beat the ruck contest. McDonald at the back gave it to Morrison, threw it on the bird into 50. Lewis wanted a free for holding, won't be paid. Gunston rips it off the bounce, hands it out wide to the running Newcomb. From 48, pushed as he kicked it. As a result, it's an errant kick along the deck. Houston can gather, hands it inbound, may have even been a throw as he was tackled. Burn-Jones mops it up off the bounce, gives it back to Burton, clears defensive 50. Pat crunched by McAvoy, who's a bit ginger after that, copped a knee in his hamstring. Probably a corky there for the Hawks skipper. Meanwhile, Mead puts his head over the footy. He's wrapped up by Granger Barras, close to the boundary line. Ball up to come just behind right half forward for the Hawks.
Umpire takes it within a couple of metres of the boundary line. Throws it in the air. McAvoy, brilliant tap. Down to O'Meara. Got the boot to ball. Scrubbed kick, but it was good enough for Bruce to pick up. Took it well. Gave it to Mitchell. Has a crack at goals. It might come back. I thought, no, it won't come back. It'll be a minor score. And I thought there was a late hit by Jonas on Mitchell. Umpire thought not. Boundary line. Liz Walsh.
He's been a great player. Oh, sorry, Liz, keep going.
No, not at all. I was just going to let you know Jackson Mead's obviously on. He's been subbed into the game for Trent McKenzie, who's out, surprisingly not with a knee. There's a concern about his ankle.
So a 37-point lead to the Hawks. Both medical subs have been activated. Chad Wingard for the Hawks just before half-time was activated for Tom Phillips. And as Liz just said, Trent McKenzie off, Jackson Mead on. Josh Shin has it out on the eastern side. Pops it short to Wines, behind the logo. Gives it off to Boak. Chain of handballs finds its way to Burn-Jones. Inbound to Mead. Then out towards the boundary line to Motlop. He's looking backwards instead of forwards. Finally goes the right way. Skies it to the 50. Powell Pepper had a fly. Didn't get a lot of height. Hardwick at the back can mop it up for the Hawks. Hands it to Sicily in the scoreboard pocket. A 1-2 with McAvoy. Now clears defensive 50 to the western side. Hits Morrison, who turns and goes. Puts it out in front of space for Gunston. He can mark in the end. Jonas was on his tail. May have legged him. Yes, the umpire calls it an advantage. Bursting into the 50 is McDonald. All alone. Can settle and miss. Gee, Bruce has given him a spray on the line as well for it. Had all the time in the world to think about it. And the youngster in his second game has missed to the left-hand side. 38 points, Hawthorn's lead. 14-6-90, plays 7-8-50.
The match really looks like Hawthorn winning by a lot more, doesn't it, than Port actually coming back.
Burton with a kick in, goes out to the eastern side. Boak still running, the veteran. Hand pass forward, having taken the mark, wasn't great. Wines picked it up, gave it to Butters, running around in circles, which probably tells the story of Port's night. Then he goes to Burn-Jones, breaks away. One bounce on centre wing, then another one. Gave it to Wines, got a return hand pass. Jath chased him all the way and tackled him, forced a mistake. It'll come back still Port's way through Wines. Kick inside 50 was horrible. Frost came hard. Had to release a hand pass, gave it to Phillips, then to Ward, back he went to Frost, or Sicily, and then back to Mitchell, who just tumble punched the ball out of there. Bruce couldn't take it, punch from behind from Port Adelaide. taken by Amon. Hand pass back, found Houston, centre of the ground. Now the short pass finds Rosie.
Just next to the centre circle. Good chip down the line to Motlock. Attacking edge of the square. Wants to head to the left forward pocket. Spots the lead of Georgiades, who rises, can't clunk it. Comes to ground. Lysett gathers, gives it to Wines. Snap around the body is curving towards the goal square. Pepper was waiting. Brought it to ground against Frost. Trying to keep it in play desperately. He sticks a hand out. It's still on the line. Scooped up by Boak. Gives it to Mead. And over the boundary line he goes. Pepper may have caught one high in his desperate attempt to keep it in, and he's a bit proppy. Boundary throw in to come, scoreboard pocket. Pepper looks to be okay. 38-point lead to the Hawks.
Ball comes back into play. Finlayson took it off the ruck contest, gave a hand pass to Hope. Butters came through, his kick was smothered. Now Mead, hand pass quickly out to the left foot of Wines, who couldn't curl it back. Minor score for Port Adelaide. Haven't been great in front of goal. 7-11 on the board to Hawthorn, 14-6. The margin is at 37 points.
Short pass hits Sicily in the right back pocket. Hardwick comes to assist as Sicily clears defensive 50 out towards the western side. Beats the pack. Before the ball, McDonald kicked it straight to Houston. Ricochets, though, through the logo. Works well for the Hawks. O'Meara can put it up over the top into the 50. There's two of them against Marshall. Gunston can work with Bruce. Handballs over the top. They share it around. It's a gorgeous affair for the Hawks at the Adelaide Oval. Teamwork makes the dream work. And it's converted on the goal line by Luke Bruce. Out to a 44-point lead. Hawthorn looks set to start the season 2-0. Port Adelaide in shambles at the Adelaide Oval.
Well, that's their fourth goal from kicking, Steve. Well,
they had two in the first half, didn't they? So,
and then they had
consistent.
one in the third quarter, and then that's their fourth for the game. I don't think I've ever seen that. 4 goals from kicking. That's a real... Is that mentality or is that structure? It has to be mentality.
Yeah, they've just they've thrown everything around now, haven't they? When you see Marshall back there, you see Skinner up forward. They just haven't looked like it all night. Hawthorn have been fantastic. Hawthorn have come here with much better sides than this and been blown away. So it's a great win by them.
Not all over quite yet. Still more time. Nash, the Irishman, interesting kick. Wasn't so much a kick. Then he got a hand pass forward after he muffed the kick. Port Adelaide go forward, soccer towards Butters. He gave a hand pass to Rosie, who didn't look in the rear vision. He was taken down. Ward through the middle through the centre wing, gave it to Mitchell for Hawthorn. He was run down by Motlock. Free kick centre wing for Port Adelaide. Handed it off to Bonner. Took a while to get control and then kicked the ball astray straight away. Granger Barras with the intercept mark and then Boone to kick towards half forward. O'Meara takes it. They've got space in front of them. Hawthorn and inside 50. Great kick finds Bruce on the chest.
Doesn't the game just even you out? Bonner, who just panicked and just kicked it forward, and then he was miles off Bruce, who's been an absolute superstar his whole career. I mean, you don't want to give him any time and space, and particularly set shots. He's deadly, but the game just punishes you.
So Luke Bruce, 40 out, just slightly to the right. Straight off the boot. Didn't even bother looking.
He's a beautiful kick.
It went straight through and he knew it as soon as he kicked it. Hawthorn in command, 16-6, 102. Port Adelaide flailing behind, 7-11, 53. 9.5 minutes into the final quarter. Surely nobody saw this coming.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. Port Adelaide, they said that if they could repeat what they did against Brisbane, they'd be happy with that. They'd be able to beat a lot of sides, but they've been nowhere near it tonight. Really disappointing effort for a match to honour the great Russell Lee, but to come out and put this performance on, yes, there's a lot of soul-searching to be done.
49 points the lead to the Hawks. 16-6, 102 to 7-11, 53. Liz Walsh on the boundary.
Yeah, they've just announced the crowd figure here, 30,267 people, most of whom are in shock at what is going on in front of them.
Bounce in the middle. Tapped down by Reeves. Mead cut it off for the power. Hands it to Finlayson. Now out wide to Drew. Wheels on the logo. Up to right half forward he goes. Too high for Georgiades at the back. Scrimshaw can mop it up. Spins out of the tackle. Gives it off to Jaff. Back to Scrimshaw on the line. And taken over Good tackle laid there by Ollie Wines. Boundary throw in to come close to the scoreboard pocket. Over at Carrara, time on the third. Melbourne lead Gold Coast by 22. 12-4-76 to 8-6-54.
Ball back into play. Drew off the back of the pack over to Sin off the left foot, sends it high towards the goal square. Sicily probably had the better of the contest. In the end, it went to ground, and Frost saw it through, rushed it through for the minor score. And so 48 the margin in favour of Hawthorn. If you've just tuned in to see what's going on, well, it's hard to explain. Hawthorn have been very good and Port have been very ordinary.
Led by 17 at quarter time, 28 at the half, 36 at three-quarter time, 48-point game at the moment as McGuinness plays on at right half back. Down the line for the Hawks. Reeves caught behind, smashes it down with a double fist. Drew was there, wrapped up quickly in the tackle and drops it. Now Rosie puts his head over the footy, wrenches it out to Burn-Jones in the centre circle. Bonner with composure, looks out wide, hits up Jonas on the logo. Jonas just trots away from the man on the mark. Played on into the 50. Great mark from Georgiades. Rises over the pack and clunks it 40 out. 45-degree angle to the left.
Probably been the only tall forward, hasn't he, that's looked like it. He really hasn't been that good, but the other two have been that bad that made him look a little bit better. He's had a couple of opportunities, but missed them both, so he needs to go back and kick this one.
On the text line, Peter in Ballarat says, on behalf of myself and all Hawthorn fans, I'd like to thank Cameron Ling for writing us off with him tipping we'd be struggling to win 5 games. Thanks, Lingy. That's Peter on the text line, 0437 774 774. Georgiades starts at left half forward. Long run up, looking for his first of the evening. Kicks on the right, it's starting left and not coming back enough. Another minor score for the Power, 7-13-55 they are. Hawthorn 16-6, 102.
3 behinds for Mitch Georgiades.
But still the best of the 3, surprisingly.
47 the margin, halfway through the final quarter. So Hawthorn, they have stunned, I would have thought. Not so much in being able to beat Port Adelaide, but it's how they've done it and by the margin.
That's right, and it's got every quarter it's been a bigger margin, so you don't often see that. Normally one side comes back and has a bit of momentum and wins a quarter, but Port haven't looked like it.
Port have won the ball, and going forward it was Amon of his non-preferred right foot to send it inside 50 but out of bounds on the full, and it will be Granger Barras to take the free kick for Hawthorn.
So out in the scoreboard pocket he'll play on. Exits defensive 50 to the eastern side. Packer waits. A couple of flyers, including Skinner, the debutant. Came to ground though. Nash tried to get a handball away under pressure. Wasn't great, but Newcomb can come through to assist. Gave it to Mitchell. May have taken it over the boundary line. A very late whistle as everyone had stopped. And finally, the boundary throw-in is called out on the eastern side. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Scott Camperelli, Stephen Williams with you. Injury news from the game. Chad Wingard was subbed off with a hamstring concern. Trent McKenzie off as well for the Port Adelaide. Now Hawthorn from the clearance. McDonald into the 50. Heads towards Gunston through his hands. Spilt to ground. Skinner tries to spin away from Gunston, who catches him. Got a handball to Jonas. He's under pressure though. The ball trickling towards the goal line. Bonner can gather and has scored it over and called deliberate. Riley Bonner just walked it over the line in the left forward pocket for the Hawks, and Jai Newcomb will receive a free, the tightest of angles in the left forward pocket.
Didn't have a right foot there, and so he decided, I'll just better off going over the boundary line.
The mid-season pick of last year, Jai Newcomb will have to snap this. And basically a straight angle, comes around. Outstanding from Jai Newcomb. The icing on the cake at the Adelaide Oval. That's a brilliant finish from the impossible angle. Hawthorn's 17th major. This is a rout. 17-6, 108. Port Adelaide 7-13-55. What a performance from Sam Mitchell's Hawks. And we've still got time to come. 15 minutes in the fourth. The Hawks are up by 53.
9 goals, 2 in the second half. So, just dominating. Kicking goals. Everything's really falling into place for the Hawks. They've just run Port Adelaide off their feet.
Newcombe, the 9th goal kicker for Port Adelaide. So, as was said, he was in the VFL Team of the Year last year and picked up in the mid-season draft, number 2 in the mid-season draft. And he has performed very well tonight, as has the entire Hawks outfit. Out of the middle again. It was a tap out of Rivers. As that man Newcombe was involved again. Hand pass wide for Morrison. Just chips it towards half forward. Taken there by Connor Nash. Goes into the forward pocket to the chest of Lewis on a lead up. And he will go back and look at the goal face from a 45-degree angle and no more than 20 metres out.
Last time Port played here at Adelaide Oval was the prelim. They lost by 70-odd points, and they haven't been too much better tonight, to tell you the truth.
Well, what were the odds on a showdown next week and neither club having won a game?
Yeah.
Makes it interesting.
It does. Makes it very desperate, doesn't it?
Well,
because I think Port play Melbourne the week after it, so one of those sides need to win.
Here's Lewis. Comes in, kicks it straight. No problem. Another one for Hawthorn. Not a lot of Hawks here, but down at the northern end of the ground there are flags flying. There's 100 or so supporters down that end, and they are so much in charge of this match. 18 goals, 6, 1-1-4. Plays Port Adelaide 7-13-55. It's been now embarrassing for Port Adelaide. 17 and a half minutes into the final term.
Well, they've kicked 10 goals out of their back half, Hawthorn. They've kicked 3 from centre bounce, which is, I guess not their huge strength at the moment, particularly with what Port have been able to do. But history counts for nothing, Aaron. We always have that discussion. It doesn't really matter. It's on the night. It's a different group of players, different mentality, different coach. They've come here to play, come here to win, and they actually threw it to Port Adelaide.
A handful of goals for Mitch Lewis. We'll head into both rooms in the post-game. We'll be with you all the way through to 11 p.m. Eastern. Plenty of reactions, so Hawks fans, message in on the text line. Port Adelaide fans, let us know your frustrations. Quick clearance for the Power. They head into the scoreboard pocket. Bounces in front of Dersma, cut off by Frost. Swung in the tackle, got a handball to Scrimshaw. Wheels around in defensive 50 and clears with a handball to Warple. Out wide to Phillips now. Flat kick down the line, works well for O'Meara. Takes it in front of Houston. Called to play on, he stepped off his line. Houston's right on him. Handball forward to Warple, sold him into danger. And Jones will have scored him over the boundary line. He'll be tossed back into play. Fans wanted to deliver it, but there wasn't a lot in that. 59 points the lead to the Hawks. Over at Carrara, Melbourne up by 22 over the Gold Coast at three-quarter time.
I think they saw what had happened down near the goals to Port Adelaide and thought that was the same thing, but Warple was actually involved in a tackle as the ball comes forward for Port Adelaide, or rather Hawthorn, to half forward. Cleared away by Bonner off the non-preferred right foot, back to Warple. He dropped the mark, picked it up though, the ball, and gave it away to get the ball back forward by Reeves, and that went out of bounds at left half forward just outside the attacking 50. Out there on the eastern side of the ground for Hawthorn.
For those interested in the Suns-Melbourne game, Ben Brown, Luke Jackson, Kazai Pickett, Levi Casbolt all have 2. Leading possession getter Christian Machak has 32, Took Miller 29. Boundary throw-in works well for the Power. Butters pops it up in front of Jones. A bit too long and takes a bounce over the line to be tossed back into play once again on the eastern side. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Scott Camporelli, Stephen Williams with you. Score update in the NRL. The Raiders have defeated the Titans 24-22. And in the A-League, Melbourne City defeated Macarthur 1-0. Central Coast Mariners destroyed Adelaide United in the end, 3-0. Out on the eastern side, Phillips tried to get a scramble kick, cut off by Boak. Got it to Drew, then Wines down the line. Finlayson stuck a hand out but couldn't pull it in. Coming through, Frost had 3 or 4 bites at it, just kept pushing it forward through the logo. Mead finally mops it up for Port Adelaide. Central kick to Butters. I think it was 15, but it's paid. Chips down the line. Dersma stood his ground, coming across. Scrimshaw nearly cut it off. Hits the deck. Centre half forward for the Power. Aim on handball out wide to Drew. Then Wines over the top. Jones has some space. Right half forward. Lowers the eyes towards the boundary line. Hits Georgiades, but he can't take it up against Granger Barras. Over the line it goes to be tossed back into play.
Well, this now really does seem like junk time as we enter time on in the final quarter. 59 points, game high margin in favour of the Hawks. Ball back into play. Phillips with a strong tackle. And he forces a ball up. Wasn't going to let Georgiades go then. So up it goes again. Off the pack comes Boak, dances through, gets it towards the top of the goal square, bouncing near the goals but doesn't go through. And in the end, it was effectively allowed to go over the boundary line. Powell Pepper is claiming it actually came off Hardwick's leg and should have been out on the full, but the boundary umpire was right there and said, no, I'm going to throw it in. It's in the left forward pocket for Port Adelaide, about 5 metres, 10 metres around from the behind post.
Toss back in, neither ruck got a clean tap. Warple wrenched it away from the contest. Spiral punt out of the 50. Heads to right half back, and behind the pack is Bonner to spoil it over the line.
Port only scored 3 behinds in the first quarter, and they've only scored 3 behinds in this quarter. So they wouldn't want to finish the game with another scoreless quarter. So, they need to get a bit of a wriggle on here.
4 unanswered goals in the term for the Hawks. Toss back in. Reeves caught behind Lysett. Power ruckman tapped it down. Drew gathered. Quick kick on the boot. Hit Finlayson, who couldn't take it. It was an awkward kick, but he still should have claimed it. And Scrimshaw can clear out to the eastern side. One bounce to Moore. Gives it back to Phillips on the logo. Up to left half forward. It's a low kick. Too low for McAvoy, who dove down but couldn't bring it in. Picked up. Skinner gave it off, but it was dropped by Bonner, and the Hawks could swoop. McAvoy gives it to McDonald. Errant hand pass forward for Nash is cut off by Burton. Port Adelaide escaped the danger. Butters to Mead, and now Drew.
Drew running through the corridor, centre of the ground. Gave it to Boak by hand, down to half forward. Boak's kick. Frost looks like he might cut it off. Went to ground, tripped over. Somehow pushed the ball out in front of him. McGuinness picked it up. Georgiades got him. Now near the boundary line, and the ball is over the boundary line. We'll get a throw in. At right half back for the Hawks.
On the text line, Gail in Launceston says, what a fantastic game by the mighty Hawks. Not wrong on any front there. They've been mighty.
Can't argue with that,
dominant.
can we? Can't argue at all. That's a perfect comment.
Knocked down by Reeves in the ruck contest. Wines was there. Reeves has a bit of an issue with his shin. Very proppy as Boat clears it into the 50. Sicily ran into Granger Barras. Meant that Powell Pepper could swoop. Gathered, curled. The snap is too far left. Minor score for Port Adelaide. Their 14th of the evening. 7-14-56. Plays 8-18-6. 114. 58-point lead to the Hawks. And we've travelled 23 minutes in this final term at the Adelaide Oval.
Hardwick plays on from the kick in. Sends it towards centre wing. Ball punched down. Forward it goes. Hawks trying to get a clean disposal. Finally, happy, I think it was McDonald who finally took it over the line. It was in the tackle of Burton. So we'll get a throw in near the interchange gates. Flurry of activity there while the game is on this side of the ground. Everything being held up before the boundary umpire is told, yep, now you can throw it in. And he does so.
In front position, Nash, the opposing ruckman to Lysett. Neither got a clean tap though, and Nash is swarmed upon. Ball up to come on the western side. Again battles with Lysett. Neither again get a clean tap. Straight in front of them, plenty of players diving onto it. Socket off the deck by Amon. Rolls towards the 50. Will sit up for Jaff. He can gather for the Hawks. Shrugs away Georgiades with ease and kicks across the goal face to the defensive goal square to Hardwick. Marks uncontested. Completes the switch out to the eastern side. Puts it in front of Scrimshaw. Gave a shove to Jones. But Lockie Jones read it well. Got a fist. Knocked it over the boundary line to be tossed back in. Out on the eastern side in front of the Jack Odie stand.
So to come, obviously, the showdown on Friday night here at the Adelaide Oval for Port Adelaide. Then they've got Melbourne, Carlton, West Coast across the next month. Off the contest, Butters takes it, gives it to Burn-Jones at the back, and then he goes forward to Butters, who goes across the ground, straight across the ground to Marshall. Haven't called his name off, and he's been sent back to get a kick, and he's got one. Some Bronx cheers from the crowd as he sends it to centre-half forward. Big leap by Georgiades. Can't take it. Sicily taken to ground in a tackle by Motlop. Now Sicily says, no, I haven't got it. Motlop has. The umpire says we'll ball it up just to come for Hawthorn. Round 3 against Carlton at the MCG. Then St Kilda, Geelong at the MCG, and Sydney in Launceston. That's their next month of footy.
30,000 in attendance, but I reckon a fair few have gone home, Campo.
Yeah, and Ken's had enough for Marshall back. He's flicked them back again. Skinner to full back and Marshall back to full forward.
Ball out on the eastern side. Mitch Lewis sliding in against Jonas, just escorts it over the line. 18-6, 114, plays 7-14, 56. 58-point lead to the Hawks at Carrara. Melbourne lead Gold Coast by 22. Start of the fourth term over there. On the reset, Nash knocked it down. Lyons' quick clearance hit Phillips, and his kick wasn't great either. Burn-Jones now for the power on the logo. Gives it to Burton. Across the square he'll go looking for Amon. Had Dersma to give assistance. Handball back to Amon. Races to the arc from 55. Curves his kick inbound. It's set up nice for Georgiades, who couldn't take it at the back. Flicked out by Bonner though. Gave it to Motlop and fumbled by Lyons, who could have had an open shot. Story of the night for the power. Hawthorn exit defensive 50. Doesn't go too far though. But Burton then shakes it off the boot. May have caught some grass on the way. Tumbles over the line in the scoreboard pocket. Port Adelaide abysmal on many fronts tonight. And they're not finishing strong either.
They've kicked 4 points for the quarter. I don't think I've seen a Port team do this, Steve.
No, they've been really poor, haven't they? There's not too many positives we could look for in this one, Campo.
Area cleared by Mitchell for Hawthorn. It's picked up by Burton, former Hawthorn player. Goes back inside 50. Sicily too strong. Takes the mark just on the big scoreboard before. It just showed a shot of what looked like a couple sitting there. The lady was in the Hawthorn colours and the guy was in the Port Adelaide colours. I don't know. They're quite an interesting household to be in tonight.
He might be lucky tonight.
Keep it PG on the ABC, Campo.
It was.
Boundary throw-in on the eastern side. Hawthorn by 58. Neither ruck went for it in the end. Nash jumps onto it off the bounce. Jones jumps onto him and slung him to deck as well as he got the kick away. Gathered by Jonas for Port Adelaide at right half back. Gives it to Burn-Jones. Spins out of a tackle. Handball inbound to Burton. Didn't have a lot of options forward, so centres his kick. To no one really in particular. Thankfully it's set up for Amon. Now through the square he'll go to Jones. Marks uncontested.
It's interesting, Burton's last 3 kicks have all been with his left foot, non-dominant. He's had some problems with his hamstring, so interesting to watch that perhaps in the post-match. Powell Pepper meanwhile is marked between centre wing and half forward. Drives it along and at the back of the pack Sicily takes it away, gives it to his workmate in Hardwick. Hardwick tries to clear the area. Powell Pepper slides in, takes the mark right on the 50 and he's cramped, I think. Yes, he has. He's slow to get up, trying to just shake the leg. Now he's retreating.
Bonner.
Man on the mark stands. Yeah, Powell Pepper's got some problems with that cramping hamstring, I think. Bonner is behind him, as you say, and here's a long kick. Powell Pepper's decided to go for it. Goes arcing around to the right, kicks it right to the goal square. And Big McAvoy says, thanks for that. I'll take a defensive mark. Yet another one. He's been powerful tonight after missing round 1. Holds it up. Hardwick runs around the back and receives a hand pass.
Clearing kick to the eastern side, looking for Nash. He could have taken it, but lost the fight of the ball. Just stuck a hand out errantly in the end. Phillips comes through on the ground to assist. Gives it to Gunston. Forward to McDonald. Had plenty of space. Pops it over the top. Mitch Lewis can run into the bounce. It's set up for him. Handball forward to Bruce. Can run into the open goal. Luke Bruce kicks his third. Gee, that was messy from the power defence. They had some chances, but it just sat up beautifully for Mitch Lewis. And Luke Bruce with the finisher, the 19th for the Hawks. 64 points the lead, closing in on the final siren.
Oh, man, we've banged on it all night, but once again, that was a mark in the goal square, Steve.
Uncontested.
And they've transitioned that ball from one end of the ground to the other, virtually uncontested. So, yeah, that is not going to be great viewing for Port coaching group, and I wouldn't have thought the players. It'd be a real straighten-up meeting on Monday. So they haven't got a lot of time.
No.
Obviously, Friday with the showdown. It probably couldn't come at a better time, to be fair.
Nothing gets you fired up like a showdown. Nothing fires Ken Hickley up like a loss as bad as this one. As it's as bad as any time in the coaching, in the 10-year history he's had with the Port Adelaide Footy Club.
Yes, I'd agree with that. They've just been outpointed, haven't they? All over the ground. They've thrown players all over the place.
And just to compound, they were getting Amon onto the ground. He was too slow coming off the interchange bench. And so it was a 666 violation. Immediately a free kick to McAvoy. And he's gone short. And McDonald takes the kick now. Sends it deep. Back goes Jonas. Knocks it away from the pack at the top of the score. For the first time since 2018, Hawthorn win the first 2 games of the season, and they've done it in style. 19-6-120 to 7-14-56.
We love our club and we play to win, riding the bumps with a grin and Hawthorn. Come on, play by the striving. Teamwork is the thing that talks. One for all and one for one, when we play at home.
A dominant display from the young Hawks on the road. They led by 17 at quarter time, 28 at the half, 36 heading into the final break, and ultimately winners by 64 points. Mitch Lewis kicked 5, Jack Gunston and Luke Bruce had 3 each, 2 to Moore and Wingard, singles to Nash, Ward, McDonald and Newcomb. For the Power, 3 to Powell-Pepper, singles to Houston, Motlop, Rosie and Lycett. Sam Mitchell's done it again. A monumental upset for the Hawthorn Football Club.
We're a happy team at Hawthorn. We're the mighty fighting Hawks. We love our club and we play to win, riding the bumps with a grin at Hawthorn. Come on, may you find us striving. Teamwork is the thing that talks. One for all and all for one, the way we play at Hawthorn.
We'll be with you for the next 40 minutes, so plenty of time to get some reaction from the Hawks rooms and hopefully the Power as well. 64-point winners, the Hawks, 19-6-120 to Port Adelaide, 7-14-56. As good as the Hawks were, the flip side of things shows Port Adelaide being absolutely dismal in what was supposed to be the Russell Ebert tribute match. Port fans, most of them, the 30,000 in attendance, left early. The rest, you can hear some jeers as they make their way out of the ground. Not pleased with his performance at all. Port Adelaide will head into the showdown 0-2, much like their crosstown rivals, the Crows. And Hawthorn, meanwhile, will have a date with Carlton next Sunday, which suddenly looks like it could be game of the round. Both undefeated. The Hawks looking up and about to start season 22. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross with you to break it all down. Stephen Williams and Scott Camporelli.
Well, I'm a little bit stunned, Steve,
Yeah, well,
to be fair. I mean, I wasn't expecting... I thought Hawthorn were probably going to be competitive, but I just thought Port Adelaide, just with what they've been able to achieve over the last couple of years. But, you know, once again, that means nothing. You know, Hawthorn came with a game plan. They took away Port Adelaide's strength in terms of how they want to shift the ball and move the ball. They forced them into a straight line game. They took away the uncontested marks, and then once they won it back, they actually just counter-attacked and said, here we go, see if you want to defend now. And they opened the ground up, they made it really big, and they had a lot more opportunities going in there, or more efficient opportunities. They had 46 inside 50s, Hawthorn, for 25 scoring shots, and they kicked 25 scoring shots for 19 goals, 6, but that was based on where they got them, Steve, as well. They were deep entries, they were one-on-one entries versus Port on the other hand, 58 inside 50s. There's enough in terms of quantity, but the quality was nowhere near.
That was poor, wasn't it? It was, never looked like it. 3 points in the first quarter, 3 goals in the second, 4 goals in the third, and 4 points in the last quarter. So half a footy, they kicked 7 points, 7 behind. So, if we would have said at the start of the game that it's going to be a 64-point blowout, you'd say, well, Port have had a pretty easy win, wouldn't you? But no, they've got a bit of work to do now. Whether they just strutted out tonight thinking, oh, well, we were pretty close last week. We're playing at home. The Hawks really aren't too fancied. We'll get over them. And Hawthorn just said, well, we're going to make you run. We're going to make you chase. We're going to make you... we're going to stop the way you like to move the football. Can you come up with something different? And there just wasn't a plan B, was there?
Well, and the other thing too, Steve, I mean, in metres game, if you talk about pure field position, they've had 1,400 metres more field position, like in terms of how they've been able to shift the ball around. And Port Adelaide, to be fair, have in front in just about every other category. But we talk about the clearance game, 55-30. So they've had 25 opportunities. But at the end of the day, they lost the battle, but they won the war because they went back the other way and scored 11 goals out of their back half.
Yeah, that's where those clearances went, didn't they? They weren't good clearances. They were just panic kicks out of a pack, and the Hawks' half-back line just cleaned it up and counter-attacked from that position.
I'm sure both of you as coaches have been here before where you put all this work in across the pre-season and then you come out like this. But you mentioned the number of forward 50 entries. They had 55 inside 50s last week against Brisbane, kicked 10 goals. Even worse this week. They've kicked 58 entries and only 7 goals.
Yeah, it's not functioning well. And it's because it's two things. It's that kick inside forward 50. It's slow and high and flighted. They're not getting any one-on-one opportunities, and it's been slow. Tonight was slow. Last week, I reckon they were a bit quicker, but it was a skill. Tonight, it was a bit of both. It was skill and it was slow, and it ended up being Hawthorn virtually putting just about all 18 players in Port Adelaide's forward 50. So very difficult for forwards to have any impact on the game.
So when you say that, Hawthorn just work harder?
No, Hawthorn came with a plan to stop Port Adelaide. They took away Port Adelaide's strength, and that was a masterstroke by Sam Mitchell. He took away what Port Adelaide want to do here at Adelaide Oval, move the ball quickly. They forced them down the line, and then they just lost contest.
On the text line, Bill's messaged in already. I imagine he's a Port supporter. He says, 10 years of fresh vision, and this is the result. Time for a clean-out. Can't change a result with the same ingredients. So... Bill's got in early on the text line 0437 774 774. Obviously disgusted with the display that was out there tonight.
I did notice there was some old-fashioned Albert and Port fans' advice given to some of the players as they were leaving the ground. But you can't take it away from Hawthorn.
They were brilliant.
Yeah.
No,
they were.
Super impressed.
We all thought perhaps the Hawks might struggle this year, but they beat North last week, which was probably expected. North are rebuilding, but to come here, as I said during the call, Hawthorn have come here with premiership teams and been pretty comfortably beaten, but they came here tonight, as Campo said, with a plan, and they just hobbled Port Adelaide, stopped them playing they want to play, and we've seen that a lot with Port, haven't we? If their game gets taken away from them, they really can't find another way to hit the scoreboard.
It's only the 6th time that Port's played against Hawthorn here at the Adelaide. So only the 6th time Hawthorn has played against Port here at the Adelaide Oval, but that's only their 2nd win from 6 starts. So it has been a problem for them.
Well, and the other thing too, the thing that impressed me from Hawthorn, it was a really even performance. Like, I'm sitting here now. We'll get to the votes later. I'm sitting there going, Mitchell, he was pretty good. O'Meara was good. I thought Scrimshaw was great. Yeah. I mean, obviously the 2 forwards. Lewis kicked 5. Gunston kicked 3. I thought he was impressive. Luke Bruce chips in with his always 3
in the last quarter.
Wingard kicked 2 early in the game that sort of set him up. So that they were, contributors. Their captain, I thought, led from the front as well around the ground. Giath, I thought some of his stuff was great. Like, it was a really even performance. I don't think there was obviously Lewis kicks 5. He was probably the standout in terms of like a no performance, but not. You look at Port on the flip side. Aim on 39 possessions, Boak 39. So that means nothing, really. They've been belted tonight, and all those guys have played their role, but didn't have any influence on the scoreboard.
The Hawks have soaked in their victory lap at the Adelaide Oval. A couple of hundred supporters out in attendance.
Yeah, they saw every one of them, didn't they?
Yeah, they went around, made sure they high-fived them all. They're heading down the race, and waiting for them down in the rooms is Liz Walsh.
Everyone welcome from the rooms. Here they come. Listen to them. They all have huge smiles on their faces, extremely excited. What a win it was tonight. They came in as underdogs, but they didn't play like that at all. And they're just getting together. Here they come. You can hear them. They're a very happy bunch. All right, and let's listen to the song.
Very happy team at Hawthorn. We'll head back to Liz Walsh very shortly for some reaction from the players, but an outstanding performance at the Adelaide Oval and a song sung with a little bit of an extra gusto there as well, I think. 2-0 to start season 2022. Kempo, you mentioned the fact that it's hard to look at the statistics and decide, I guess, which player was best for Hawthorn because it was so evenly distributed. We don't often do fantasy scores on the ABC, but if you actually look at the top 10, no one at the Hawks passed 100. And the top 4 is Boak, Amon, Butters and Wines, all 120 plus. And the best for Hawks was Tom Mitchell with 98. Hawthorn shared the load tonight. It was a team performance rather than an individual game.
Yeah, well, and that's why you can get skewed with all that, that stuff. I mean, I'm not 100% all over that, how you get your points and whatever.
It's all about stats, but it's
correct.
not about...
But the stats are irrelevant. It's about what the team does. So once again, you go back to how they wanted to play. They looked like they executed everything that they wanted to achieve. I was a bit worried around the clearance game. I just thought that if that starts getting out of hand and giving Port field position, but as we've highlighted, they handled it really well. That back seven that played back there, they were outstanding.
Can I just say, during the song, they say, riding the bumps with a grin. And the first time that Tom Mitchell went near the ball, he got poleaxed by Pal Pepper. And he's just come up grinning at the end of the game, hasn't he?
Just an accumulator. He's grinning now.
Working hard.
He's grinning now. He wasn't grinning when he saw Sam Powell Pepper coming at full
and he
steps.
might be a bit sore in the morning too.
Well, he might have been groaning then, but
it doesn't hurt when you win.
But it was just such a great performance by their senior players, but then and the young blokes as well. Just back them up. Quite often it's the senior guys that pull all the weight, but that's such an even contribution right across with the younger guys. We don't know a lot about the younger guys, names in the Hawthorn side that aren't that familiar compared to the last probably dozen years, but all of a sudden they'll start to become familiar because they put together a terrific performance tonight.
Over at Carrara, Melbourne lead the Gold Coast by 20 points, 12-10, 82, 9-8, 62. If you'd like to hear that game, jump on the AFL app. There is an ABC stream available. Christian Petrarca has 38 touches for the D's. Took Miller has 36 for the Suns. Clayton Oliver 33. It's a high possession game, but Melbourne up by 20 at the moment. On the text line 0437 774 774, Norman Cowell has messaged in and says, time to get rid of Koshy. So there's seems to be a common theme.
He didn't get a kick tonight, did he?
I think he's the problem, but there seems to be this general consensus that Port fans might be wanting a change. It's only 2 rounds in, and this is a team that's had back-to-back prelim finals.
Yes, I think they'd be very, very disappointed with what happened tonight. Last week they copped some injuries and they put up a pretty good performance, but there's no excuses tonight. They were just blown out the water.
Just as a matter of history, Russell Ebert was coach in 1987. It was Bring Back Jack, wasn't it? And Jack Cale had enormous success when he did come back.
He did.
They can
indeed.
be ruthless down at Alberton.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, Ken's been there. This is his 10th year, I think. So, something's got to give. He has to get the side back to pretty much a preliminary final where they were last year, and it's going to be tough. We've seen a lot of sides improve, and what we've seen so far from Port is that when there's a few key personnel missing, Dixon up forward, Alir down back, they really struggled to do too much, in either of those areas. So there's a bit of soul searching to be done, and there's not a lot of options because there's not I don't think Dixon's ready to come back just yet. Ali's obviously out for a while, and they brought a couple of first gamers in tonight, and it just hasn't worked for them.
So how big was the loss of Ali tonight? The fact that Sam Skinner had to come in and play that role, and at the end of the day only had 10 touches. Is it as simple as saying the reason that Hawthorn's inside 50 entries was so successful is because there wasn't an intercept marker for Port Adelaide?
No, that was coming in with speed. That was coming in one-on-one. And to be fair, I don't think even Ali would have had any... he's a real proactive defender. I think he would have got exposed as well tonight. So I just think that the way Hawthorn attacked them, their skill level, they got the ball through, they made the ground big, they asked Port Adelaide a question, and they got one-on-ones where they needed to, close to goal.
Well, we know it's easy to jump off a cliff at this time of the year after just 2 rounds at how good Hawthorn was, how bad Port was. But does it in some way indicate that the depth that's been spoken about at Port Adelaide on and on and on is actually not quite as deep as what they may believe?
The depth conversation always interests me because most teams have your best 25 regularly, and then it's really some young guys and some development guys coming through. You're always going to have... I'm yet to see a team that has 35 to 40 guys that are batting the door down that are like top-tier AFL players. So the depth conversation is a bit hit or miss for me. What it is can you bring some guys in that can play a role and contribute to help wait for those better players to come back? And if you go through, I mean, Richmond are probably in that same boat at the moment. Have they got some depth, going through, when they were up and going, 2 or 3 years ago when they won their flag, they probably did have the depth of some great, some really solid players underneath that they could, flip in and out. But, the whole depth conversation, I understand it, but I think it's an easy conversation. But most teams, as I said, have their probably top 25 guys to 30, and then it drops away to development and some younger guys coming through.
West Coast is going to find that out this weekend.
Yes. On the text line, an unnamed texter says, last time Carlton and Hawthorn played as top 8 teams was 2011. Next Sunday will have to be the most important game they've played against each other since the 80s. 3-0 up for grabs for 2 young teams with a new coach. Definitely the game of the round. I am really excited for it now, to be honest.
It'll be packed.
It'll be outstanding.
There's no doubt it'll be packed.
That's the last time Carlton won a premiership, wasn't it? The 80s? Or they win one in the 90s, did they?
Come on.
Well, I know Hawthorn...
It has been 26 years, but yes, it has been a long time.
Well, that was my point, really. It's not the 80s, it was the 90s when Hawthorn was up and about, and of course so was Carlton at that time.
You've got to get there first.
At least for
then
one
win
season.
Over at Carrara, Melbourne leading Gold Coast by 19 points, time on in the 4th, so that game looks nearly done and dusted. 12-10-82 to 9-9-63 earlier today. Collingwood defeated Adelaide by 42 points. There was a false fire alarm at the MCG, which was quite exciting.
It was really exciting to watch.
The entire crowd got evacuated. The players got rushed to the square.
Well, it was really interesting. It didn't last that long because apparently it's been said it was a false alarm. There wasn't a small fire or something in it.
From the cafeterias.
From the hot dog machine.
Yeah, something like that. And but... Yeah, I was watching the game and a minute into the second quarter, and the bells and whistles went off, and then they were directing people out, and they sort of, if you get to the top of the stairs from where the seats are, they got up to about that stage, and then they said, no,
get back.
So and there was, I think there was a couple of goals just in that couple of minutes afterwards that some of the spectators would have been going, hang on. You can't start playing until I'm back in the ground.
Well, I was playing the last time there was a fire at the MCG when the scoreboard lit up. I was playing. I couldn't believe it. I was sitting there going, what the hell's going on here?
They didn't evacuate anybody that day. It was just... that night, I'm sorry. Yeah. It was just like...
No, they just let it burn. And it was just dropping down on the people in front. Yeah.
So Collingwood defeated Adelaide by 42 points despite all the drama that went around that contest. And the middle game saw the Lions defeat the Bombers by 22 points. Essendon actually had an early lead after their mauling by the Cats last round, so they did show a little bit of effort, but Brisbane came back after quarter time and led all the way to the end by 22 points. Their victory in the end. Lachie Neale had 41 touches and 2 goals. More concerns for the Bombers. Zach Merritt went off with an ankle injury. Nick Cox as well seemed to have a lower leg issue, so a little bit depleted, the Bombers, and unfortunately 0-2 for them to start the year as well. Still 3 games to come tomorrow as well, and I guess the highlight for many people will be that North Melbourne West Coast game, just to see what actually happens.
See how many West Coast players you know.
I'm tempted not to change my tip. I went West Coast during the
So
week,
did I.
and I don't know. You never know with some kids who are trying
I'd
to
like
make
to
their
change
mark.
mine if I could.
Aaron, do you know who's calling that game? Is that in Perth or is that?
It's over in Melbourne.
It's
yeah.
in Melbourne. Gee,
At Docklands.
I wouldn't like trying to pick up the West Coast players.
I got a text from Clint Wilden earlier today, actually, with the champion data team sheets that basically was explaining all the numbers that were at the bottom of it. So if you look at the list, this is from from the higher number down. There's a 63, 62, 52, 49, 48. It's all the last selected out of the Eagles squad that's
like
coming in for this
football
one.
side, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one tomorrow. Same will go for Richmond against the Giants. Dylan Grimes is actually a late out for them, so that's another big name missing for the Tigers. I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants try to make a statement at the MCG. And Fremantle play St Kilda to conclude the round as well over at Perth Stadium. That one should be pretty close as well. You'd think both teams hoping to push towards the 8. Fremantle off a win, St Kilda a loss, but the Dockers at home I'm going to go with.
Yeah, no, having seen the Dockers live last week, I think they've still got, they've got some good young players coming through, haven't they? They were exciting last week. Brayshaw and Sarong and these sort of guys, but St Kilda probably need to get themselves going as well. They're going to put my old mate Brett Ratton under a bit of heat if he doesn't quite get it done as well.
Back at the game at hand, we're waiting to chat to the Hawks. They're just in a quick meeting at the moment, and Dan Houston's been good enough as well to stand aside, or at least stand in the way, and wait for an interview to front the media. Speaking of that, we can actually head straight to the Hawks room now. So Liz Walsh is standing by in the Hawks camp after their big win at the Adelaide Oval.
Yeah, I'm standing right here with Jago O'Meara. What a tremendous win you guys had tonight. You kicked the first goal at the 2-minute mark, and then it just seemed like they